Enjoy the show. I hit the wrong button. Good evening, everyone. And, of course, welcome back to another very exciting episode of Red Pill News Live. Now, last week on Election Day in California, I said, don't worry, they still have 6 more weeks to count votes. And a couple of people got upset in the chat. But look at what they're doing. They are obviously trying to steal the election. If this was real, if it was organic, I think everybody knows there's no way that either of these two women would be getting as many votes as they are. However, this is the lot we've been dealt. I still think that this would be the perfect opportunity for the administration to come out and expose the totality of election fraud and everything else that comes along with it. Exposing, at the same time, every single facet of the fraudulent system in California. Of course, that would extend out to the rest of the country as well. So we are, of course, going to be talking about the contentious election in California. And a whole hell of a lot more, including immigration, some wins, and I'm gonna be asking you to call Congress on a very specific issue. They are trying to sneak something in, which is going to load us up with a whole bunch more additional visa holders. Ridiculous. All I need from you at this moment is to sit back, relax, and grab your popcorn, because we're about to get into it right about now. Recently, the U.S. Department of Energy announced $2.7 billion in contracts to restore domestic uranium enrichment capabilities. So here's the reality. The U.S. consumes over 50 million pounds of uranium every single year, but we produce less than 1 million pounds domestically. That leaves America 98% dependent on foreign suppliers for our supply. It's a critical vulnerability for national security, power generation, and advanced weapons systems. With Russia controlling much of the global enrichment capacity and escalating tensions in Iran threatening nuclear supply, the stakes could not be higher, which is why the White House has made it crystal clear. America must develop its own supply chain. And this is where Kirkstone Metals comes in. They trade under KSM in Canada and KSMCF in the US. They've got decades of uranium and junior mining expertise, and Kirkstone's leadership team knows how to turn exploration projects into real value. But the question is, can they do it again? Kirkstone controls 2 100% owned uranium projects strategically located in the Athabasca Basin. This is the richest uranium district on the planet. And at their flagship Key Lake project, drilling has already hit high-grade uranium right near the surface, but the team truly believes the real prize lies deep underground. So using a playbook based on the decade's biggest discoveries, they're hunting the massive source below. So let's talk about the Athabasca Basin. It's home to multi-billion-dollar names like NextGen Energy and Denison Mines. The Athabasca Basin has delivered over 20% of the world's uranium discoveries, with an estimated $200 to $300 billion worth of uranium identified in the ground, and yet Kirkstone is still sitting at a market cap below $12 million. That's an enormous disconnect between what's found in this district and how some companies are valued today. On January 14th, the U.S. administration reinforced their commitment to domestic energy security, invoking Section 232 via an executive order. It's a formal declaration of resource independence. It's a mandate. Energy security is now national security, and the U.S. government is deploying its full fiscal and regulatory tools to secure the nuclear fuel cycle in North America. Kirkstone Metals is strategically positioned to capitalize on this shift. Now, uranium prices have surged, and some analysts project prices could exceed $100 per pound by 2026 as demand outpaces supply. Federal momentum has already begun to translate into dollars on the ground, including billions in planned funding for domestic uranium enrichment capacity. The sector is entering one of its most active drilling seasons in years, and with its flagship drill program approved, Kirkstone has exploration underway, and they're advancing with a focus on execution. Some companies operating in the district are valued at over $10 billion, and with the U.S. pushing for domestic uranium, Kirkstone could potentially become a leading beneficiary of the reshoring mandate. So if you want to learn more about this critical mineral story and about a team that has delivered big results in the past, check out the link in the description. And a very special thanks to Kirkstone Metals for making today's video possible. All right, so I see people saying that Rumble appears to be having technical issues, and I think that this may be a symptom of me trying to get Getter working, because Getter is not working through the Rumble studio, and so I am multi-streaming. I'm using Rumble Studio to push out the stream to a bunch of other platforms, and then I'm going directly to Getter. And if that means that I have to stop going to Getter, then I'm just going to stop going to Getter. Because half of the shit is outside of my control, guys. I know that everybody thinks, like, you know, I could make it just work, but I can't just make it work because there's all of these different platforms that I'm trying to make it work on in order to just get the show out there. So I'm just going to stop streaming on Getter, and I need you guys to tell me if Rumble starts working better at this point. There was a short buffer during that advertisement. It was quickly over. Okay, all right. Well, maybe I'll just keep going to Getter, and I guess you guys tell me if you see something. Let me know exactly what it is, because there's really not much I can do. All right, so speaking of Rumble, before we actually get into the news today, I do have one more sponsor from our friends over here. Thank you very much to Rumble, you guys. I'm sure you do hear a lot about crypto. We talk about it here on the show, hear it all over the place. But one of the most important things that people miss when the conversation about crypto comes up is that it was created solely so that you could own and control your own money. After the 2008 financial crisis, Bitcoin was designed as an alternative to banks. So instead of you going to a bank and having them hold on to your money and delaying transfers or limiting access, you get total control over your own wealth. And if you've ever had to wait for a transfer to clear, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So now fast forward to today. I'm sure everybody's heard about crypto, but getting into it might feel complicated. This is one of the reasons I love Rumble Wallet, because it takes all of the complexity out of it. It makes it very simple. You choose exactly what you want to work with: Bitcoin, dollar-backed stablecoins, or even digital gold that's backed by real gold. It's not complicated to set up. It connects with MoonPay, so you can use your own credit card, debit card, or bank account, and you'll be up and running in minutes. And then once you get set up, of course, you can use it to also support your favorite creators on Rumble, like me or many other people. So do this right now. Scan that QR code on screen or click the link in the description, and you'll download the Rumble wallet. From there, you can set up the wallet, tap buy, and you're in the game. And in just a very few minutes, you can go from hearing about crypto to actually owning some. Thank you so much once again to Rumble Wallet. All right, guys. So let us continue here and just jump right into it. All right. So thank you very much, Phil. It looks like it is working over there on Getter. Okay. I thought that this was a perfect way to start the show because, as I've said so many times, we are up against a behemoth. Not just you and me, the people in America, but President Trump is right there on the front lines. He and the people that he has surrounded himself with are attempting to take down what is essentially the most well-developed, best-funded, and wide-reaching criminal conspiracy that you can possibly imagine. Those people have embedded themselves in every facet of society. They may not even know exactly what they're a part of, but when they're corrupt, when they can be bought, when they can be compromised, they de facto become part of that enemy set, the deep state itself. Now, Ed Martin posted this over the weekend. He said, they killed Charlie, they shot President Trump, they put hundreds in the DC gulag. It's not a battle of ideas. They want us dead. Know the fight we are in. And I think that this is important to remember because, you know, a lot of people tend to just kind of jump from election cycle to election cycle, and they don't really think about it much deeper than that. These people know exactly what they're dealing with. They know exactly who they're fighting against. And when it comes down to it at the end of the day, they do want to kill us. They want to get rid of us. They want to control us. They want to subjugate us. They want to put us in a cell at the end of the day, if it's possible. And barring that, they want to destroy America through the influx of migrants, through the destruction of the economy, through the lessening of your quality of life until you get to a certain point where you just say, you know what, shit, I'm giving up. I'm done. See it in the chat all the time. People, God, when is this going to be over? I was in my 30s when I started doing this show, and I'm almost 50 now. So believe me, I understand. I was a young man. My beard was brown and blonde. Now it's totally white. I told you guys, somebody came into the chat not that long ago and said, Zak Paine aging faster than most podcasters. Well, shit, dude. I'm going to be 48 years old this year. All right. And I didn't just start paying attention to politics when I started doing the show. I've been paying attention to this stuff for a long time. I have witnessed the slow decline of America throughout the majority of my life, believing that I would never have an opportunity to even grasp a small portion of the American dream. My ideas have changed. They've evolved over the years. And now here we are. And I feel that it truly is within reach. I know that some of you out there have been around a lot longer than I have. And maybe you've been paying attention to politics for even longer than that. But the one thing that I do know is that we need each and every one of you to be directly engaged in this fight. Number one, you can't allow somebody else to do it for you. You need to take control of your own agency. Number two, you can't just give up, because if you give up, as far as I'm concerned, that is tantamount to essentially abdicating ground and telling these people that they can go ahead and take the field. Well, pardon my French, but fuck that. Okay, I'm either going to win or I'm going to die trying. And I have said this before, but I hope in my heart of hearts that at some point in the future, my children and my grandchildren are going to have the America that we were all promised. Even if I don't get to have access to that America, I want to know that I put every possible fiber of my being into trying to get there. Now, last week, first, actually, I want to give updates on two stories before we get into the election stuff. All right. Last week, Judicial Watch got back a FOIA request from the FBI investigation into Thomas Crooks and the attempted assassination of President Trump at Butler. It makes total sense when you look at this, okay, in relation to the post from Eagle Ed Martin that I just wrote. They want you dead. They tried to kill President Trump. And it just baffles me when people come forward and they're like, I don't like what Trump's doing. And so I think that I'm done with President Trump. I'm done with trying to make America great again. I'm done with the idea of America first, as if we have anything else, guys. Really, as if we have anything else. Now, do you know of any other political candidate, anybody else who's ever run for office who the deep state has tried to assassinate on as many occasions as President Trump? Can you name for me legitimately like one other person who's anywhere near the office of the president that has done anything half as specific as what President Trump has done? Like, I already know the answer to that. There's nothing. There's no one. I just saw a thing today. Greg Bovino says that he might be running for president in 2028. Cool. I love Greg Bovino. I'd probably vote for Greg Bovino. But 2028 is a hell of a long way away. And between now and 2028, guys, there is a lot of shit that could happen. Now, take a look at this. With these FBI records that were FOIA'd from Judicial Watch, these records from Judicial Watch show us a couple of really interesting and suspicious things. First of all, there were about 48 heavily redacted pages, and it was given to them because they filed a FOIA request, and they had a lawsuit where they were trying to get every piece of information that the SWAT team and the FBI was willing to pass out. So it shows that there was a medic with the Beaver County Emergency Services. When the FBI got there, she told them that she was on the roof at the American Glass Research, the AGR building, and she told the FBI that she was examining Thomas Crooks' body, and then she informed police that she was informed that a police canine dog had hit on the building, and she was told to evacuate the roof where Thomas Crooks' body remained. Now, the FBI did not respond initially back in 2025, 2024 to the lawsuit. And finally, they did hand over all of this stuff. This officer for the Beaver County Emergency Services Unit found some type of a remote device and a cell phone in Thomas Crooks's pocket. It sounds like there was an explosive device, and Thomas Crooks had a remote detonator for it. And that's what the canine had actually hit upon, which is why they forced them off of the roof. Now, we've never heard that Thomas Crooks had any type of an explosive device. We've never heard that Thomas Crooks had anything other than a cell phone or maybe 2 cell phones in his pocket. But the first responder also stated that she was called to the roof to pronounce him dead, confirmed that she was present at the Butler County Fairgrounds for the rally. Her responsibilities included providing medical backup for the ESU team. She arrived at Fairgrounds at 9 a.m. and was positioned at the spectator screening area. Redacted, in some individual, reported that the Beaver County ESU team were provided 2 Butler County radios to monitor 2 different channels during the event. One was patrol. Beaver County ESU commander was notified to move, so the team prepared to move. During that time, Redacted advised that the team was also aware of reporting from the sniper element of the questionable subject in the area that could not be located. Again, they had seen Thomas Crooks wandering around. He was the only one using a drone that day. They didn't have drones. He had a rangefinder. Just there's so many screwy things about this. So Redacted was in the Beaver County ESU vehicle, a Bearcat, with the rest of the team. The vehicle was being driven by someone who's redacted. Initially, they stopped at the command post, and they moved towards the first victim. The Bearcat was moved between the crowd and the victim. The Butler County medic, named Redacted, was first to the victim. Redacted reported that there were 3 healthcare providers with the victim, so Redacted did not move to provide support. Then she looked for others that may need medical assistance. Redacted did not have access to Butler County radios, only access to a Beaver County radio. She did not remember who told her, but there were reports for medical assistance needed at the AGR facility. She coordinated with Redacted to request operator support to travel from the stage to the facility. She traveled with Redacted and Redacted. They went through a small space in the fence that separated the fairgrounds and the AGR building. She was advised there may have been multiple operators down, a potential shootout, and that shooter was down. She encountered a uniformed officer and was told that support was needed on the roof. She utilized a black collapsible ladder and got up on the roof. At 6:23 p.m., she arrived on the roof and didn't see any officers. She was told by others on the roof to evaluate the shooter. She observed the shooter had injuries not sustainable for life. She checked the shooter's pulse on the carotid on the right side, did not find one. She pronounced him dead at 6:25. Redacted observed the shooter lying prone, face down, handcuffed with flex cuffs. The rifle was off to the shooter's left. There were medical supplies near the shooter, but they didn't belong to her. There were 2 Butler County SWAT officers, 1 Washington County SWAT officer, and a uniformed Butler County officer on the roof as well. Washington County SWAT officer checked the shooter's right pocket and discovered a gray remote device with numerical push buttons and an antenna and a cell phone. Redacted recalls the EOD, explosive ordnance disposal, showed up on the roof to look for the gray remote device. She remembers being told a canine hit on the building beneath them. They were told to evacuate. Shooter's body remained. Redacted does not know when the shooter's body was moved. She was provided a body bag from Butler County EMS. Redacted doesn't know when she left. Redacted did not attend operations briefing at 0900. The other thing about this is that it turns out that there were email communications between Thomas Crooks and a Butler County Sheriff's deputy. Well, that's interesting. Why didn't they tell us that one before? Okay, so we don't know what the content of those emails were, but allegedly, all we know is that there were a series of emails that were provided back and forth, and we don't know if that's because Thomas Crooks knew people on the sheriff's department. We do know that he went to the same gun range where like DHS and other operators were going to shoot. So it stands to reason he might have been friendly with law enforcement in some respect. In August of 2025, there was an incident where a club member allegedly carried a loaded semi-automatic handgun past Secret Service screening checkpoints at the Trump National Golf Course. That was another one that Judicial Watch sued for. Essentially, they have sued for everything they possibly can. And I hope that we're going to get some type of information about the emails that were transferred back and forth between Thomas Crooks and the deputy, because I think that's a need to know. We definitely need to know. Now, AOB22 says, hey, everyone, happy Monday. Zach and Lisa are the best when it comes to live news stories. Sources close to the matter agree. 5 p.m. is always coming in hot with a great dose of humor and positivity. Thank you so much, sir. I appreciate you. Chipmunk45, thank you for the cookie. And Luann V, thank you for the phone as well. All right. Now, we also have a new person involved with the Jeffrey Epstein investigation from Palm Beach who is now speaking out after many years. This is former Palm Beach Chief of Police Michael Ryder. He spent years pursuing and investigating Jeffrey Epstein, and he has stayed away from the public conversation for a reason. You've really probably only heard of him if you've gone deep into the investigation itself. The thing that's interesting about it is that he's been around. He had a 40-year-plus law enforcement career, and he hit very early on Jeffrey Epstein. And one of the reasons he never came and spoke out about this is because he saw the way that it was kind of blowing up people's lives. He had already done his part. He really just wanted to protect children, and he saw just how easily Jeffrey Epstein was able to manipulate the legal system. Whether it's a payoff or a whole bunch of lawyers that you're paying millions of dollars for. So after Jeffrey Epstein served his very, very cushy 13-month sentence at the Palm Beach County Jail, Ryder retired, and he went and started a security company. He still lives in Palm Beach, though. Now, over the past 2 decades, Ryder says he has resisted talking about this, mostly because he was just kind of disgusted with the way that Epstein was able to get around and through the criminal justice system. He kind of wanted everything to play out in the courts. He didn't want to play it out in the media. He didn't want to jeopardize any of the possible cases that might be coming up. But the reason he's talking now is because all of these Epstein files have started to be released. And so now he's coming forward to talk about what really happened at the Palm Beach Police and how they handled this case more than 20 years ago. He said, I stopped doing interviews and going on the record for years because I did not want my life to be consumed by this case. But now, as he's reading through the files, he has become appalled at just how obvious it is that so many people helped Jeffrey Epstein to escape criminal prosecution. And he does believe that there is an effort within the Justice Department to withhold the rest of the case files. I've spoken about this on many occasions before. The case files were not in the hands of the current administration for many, many years, 20 years plus. So we have no idea what still exists. We have no idea, what has been destroyed or otherwise. He said the biggest challenge in leading a professional police department usually isn't the police work, it's the politics. In the Epstein case, those obstacles proved insurmountable, even though we tried our very best. More than once, he was pressured by prominent leaders in the Palm Beach community to just leave it alone. And there were times after the story broke in 2005 that some people on the island would see him and cross the street because they did not want to actually be seen interacting with him. Palm Beach operates on 2 primary principles, Hunter S. Thompson wrote. Maintain the privacy and the pipeline at all costs. This is referring to a sort of code of silence surrounding the misdeeds of the island's wealthy. Ryder, however, broke that code a long time ago. Of all the law enforcement agencies involved in the case, Ryder and his lead detective, the late Joe Recarey, stood alone in the battle to put Epstein behind bars for good, and in some ways, he has paid the price ever since. Even today, high-profile members of Congress continue to spread misinformation about the Palm Beach Police Department's role in the case, implying at times that police were part of the cover-up. That has never been true. In fact, Ryder risked his career to go after Jeffrey Epstein. To truly understand how these crimes began and the investigation began, you got to go back to the beginning. So Ryder first heard of the name Jeffrey Epstein in April 2002 after Epstein donated money to a scholarship fund for the children of police department employees. Look at that, trying to buy access right off the bat. So because this donation was given, Ryder, as chief of police, sent a thank you letter to Jeffrey Epstein saying, thank you very much for the contribution. Now, after that, Epstein did not come up on Ryder's radar again for quite some time. I guess that there were some calls that came in about Epstein's waterfront home eventually, he learned about these things. In 2003, Jeffrey Epstein reported to police that thousands of dollars in cash and a gun were stolen from his mansion on El Brio Way, which is a dead-end street on the Intercoastal. Epstein had done some of his own detective work by purchasing a spy camera to catch the culprit, and it turned out to be a former butler. In the end, the butler agreed to pay back the money, and Epstein decided not to prosecute. But it was during that probe, Epstein learned that the Palm Beach Police Department did not have the equipment to view his video. So he donated $36,000 for a forensic video analysis system, which didn't seem unusual at the time since residents often made contributions to boost the town's crime prevention efforts. Ryder wrote another thank you and offered Epstein a tour of the police station and a demonstration of how that new equipment worked. So Epstein arrived on his bicycle with an attractive blonde woman who waited in the lobby when Epstein met Ryder in his office. Ryder recalls Epstein was dressed in sweatpants and he seemed more interested in sizing him up than he was in taking the tour. Then in the summer of 2004, police again were summoned to Epstein's home on a report of a suspicious vehicle in the driveway. According to the report, the driver of the vehicle, a 17-year-old girl, identified herself, and the property manager immediately recognized the girl and quickly told cops he had forgotten she was coming to pick up an envelope that Epstein had left for her. I can't talk. I'm at school. I gotta go," she told police, still sitting in her car. She explained that Epstein had let her come to the house to use his swimming pool. Well, 2 months later in November, Epstein cut police another check for $90,000 for a firearms simulator. At the time, Ryder didn't know about the girl in Epstein's driveway, and he didn't learn about that call until years later. Around the same time, detectives investigated another complaint that young women were coming and going from Epstein's home during the day. Unlike the prior incident, Ryder was told about the calls this time. I remember receiving the information that the detectives stopped a few young females on the way to the house. They got their info. They were over 18, so they were adults. They said they were paid by Epstein to answer phones. But Ryder started to suspect that Epstein's altruistic endeavors had ulterior motives. He shared his concerns with the town manager, and they agreed to hang on to the money for the simulator and not purchase it for the time being. And his instincts proved correct. In March of 2005, a woman reported her 14-year-old stepdaughter had been molested by a wealthy man who lived on El Brio Way in the town of Palm Beach. Well, it didn't take detectives very long to figure out that it was Jeffrey Epstein. Now, from that one girl's story, police learned Epstein had been molesting dozens of girls from a West Palm Beach high school. One girl led them to another, and then another. They interviewed the girls on camera. They collected evidence, including phone records that they could use to build a case against Epstein. Epstein, suspecting that something was up, called Ryder to ask about his earlier donation and to offer them another $130,000 for a fingerprint system. Epstein also suggested paying for the services of a chiropractor for the office. Isn't that nice? He called me and he asked what else he could donate, and I realized he was probing me to see if we were behind the investigation. He didn't really want to donate anything. He just wanted to see how I handled that call. One of the things people outside of South Florida often get wrong about the Epstein case is where the crimes happened and which law enforcement jurisdictions were responsible for holding Epstein accountable. This is one thing that I have addressed on this show on multiple occasions. I've seen in the chat, I've seen people, online say, Pam Bondi let Epstein go. Pam Bondi didn't prosecute Epstein in the way she should have. Well, guess what? Pam Bondi wasn't the Attorney General of Florida at the time that Epstein got prosecuted, and it wasn't a state-level case, so she wouldn't have even if she had been. You all know Epstein lived in a mansion in Palm Beach. It's a tiny island off the coast of Palm Beach County. It's totally separate from the city of West Palm Beach, which is over a bridge on the mainland. Palm Beach and West Palm Beach each have their own different police departments. Palm Beach County, which encompasses both the town of Palm Beach and the city of West Palm Beach, has a county sheriff's office with jurisdiction over towns and cities in the county that don't have their own police departments. Geography is important to understand because this is how the case fell apart. For example, the sheriff's department had oversight of Epstein's incarceration because it operates the county jail and the county stockade, which is where Epstein eventually was sentenced to be incarcerated. Now, the Palm Beach Police Department has no jurisdiction over county jails. Palm Beach County also has a state attorney who prosecutes cases for the entire county instead of the town of Palm Beach. Now, at that time, State Attorney Barry Kreischer was the most powerful figure in Palm Beach. He served there for 13 years. The sheriff, Rick Bradshaw, who has now been in office for 22 years, is a close second. Now, most of the girls who were victims lived in West Palm Beach and attended Royal Palm Beach High School. Epstein's crimes happened at the mansion on the island. His operation was set up so that each girl was recruited from the mainland, mostly from West Palm Beach, and then brought by car or taxi to Epstein's house, ostensibly to give him massages. Those were really code word for sex. On the initial visits, most of the girls believed they were earning money to give him a massage. Now, since the crimes happened at the mansion, the Palm Beach Police Department had jurisdiction over the investigation. Ryder knew that Epstein had a lot of friends in very high places. He assigned one of his top investigators, Rick, to the case and notified Kreischer that they were preparing a sexual battery case against an affluent resident who was molesting and sexually assaulting girls from West Palm Beach. Now, at first, Kreischer was supportive. He told Ryder he had never heard of Jeffrey Epstein. He signed off on the investigation. He told Ryder a man who was molesting so many girls should be put away for life. But Epstein had a very powerful legal team. It was headed by some of the most aggressive lawyers in America. Alan Dershowitz, a friend of Epstein's, met with Kreischer and the lead assistant state attorney, Lana Blalovic, and launched a scorched earth attack on the girls and their families. And it worked. Kreischer came to believe it was a case he couldn't win, largely because Dershowitz claimed they were gold diggers who lied about their ages and had been paid money by Epstein. Their social media showed they smoked marijuana, they drank alcohol, they talked about sex with boys. By the laws, they were still on the books in Florida at the time. The girls could have been charged with child prostitution, Kreischer argued. But Ryder and Rick never saw it that way. These were children being victimized and a person using his privilege and influence and power and the ability to hire all the best criminal attorneys in the country. To me, if you can't protect children, your community can't protect anybody. Now, Rick has since died. He told the Miami Herald in 2018 that he had unsuccessfully argued that that having sex with minors, regardless of whether money was exchanged, was still a serious crime. The age of consent in Florida is 18. Most of the girls were 13 to 16 years old. Epstein had also used fraud because he lured them there under false pretenses. He said they were going to be hired for massages, and then later that fraud turned into coercion, and he began threatening them and their families. Ryder and Rick, although they were getting pushback from every direction they could, they were undeterred. They continued piecing together the case, and Rick drafted arrest warrants and probable cause affidavits, but the state's attorney refused to sign off on them. Kreischer informed Ryder he wanted to close the case by writing Epstein up on a misdemeanor. Ryder refused to let up. He wrote a letter to Kreischer demanding the state's attorney either sign the warrants or recuse himself from the case, and eventually Kreischer decided to hand the decision over to a state grand jury and let them decide whether to indict Epstein on more serious criminal charges. Even that process raised questions, as Blalovic failed to present evidence showing Epstein had been sex trafficking dozens of underage girls. Instead, she called one victim to testify and made sure the grand jury knew the girl had committed the crime of prostitution. Now, neither Kreischer or Blalovic had ever even explained why they didn't present the case as a sex trafficking case, given that a new sex trafficking law had just been passed in Florida in 2004. Kreischer did not respond to a request for comment on this story, and Blalovic left the state's attorney's office in 2009. She also did not respond to phone messages or an email from the Herald. No matter what we did, the fact of the matter was, in the state's attorney's mind, the view of the case was that these were prostitutes. Jack Scarola, a former criminal prosecutor in Palm Beach, said the state's attorney's decision to not prosecute Epstein didn't make any sense then, and it still doesn't now. He was a dedicated career prosecutor who knows what's necessary to put together a strong case under circumstances such as those presented in the Epstein investigation. It's impossible for me to believe that he did not recognize that Jeffrey Epstein's crimes were extremely serious and that the quality of the evidence against him was very, very strong. Now, eventually, in this article, it continues on. There's quite a bit of information about Ryder and his background. But it also turns out that George W. Bush, who was president at this time, his Department of Justice, was instrumental in helping Jeffrey Epstein to get off. I mean, Alexander Acosta, of course, was the U.S. attorney at that time. But this comes down to more than just Alexander Acosta. And as you can see from this brief introduction of Epstein's circle of power at the local level, extend that power circle out, and you can see just how easy it is for Jeffrey Epstein to get away with this for as long as he did. People want to point to one individual. And if you're going to point to anybody, you point to Jeffrey Epstein because he's the one who compromised everybody. He's the one who cooked this all up. Ghislaine Maxwell, she's obviously a piece of shit as well. But Jeffrey Epstein had connections, and Jeffrey Epstein used those connections. You have no idea what skeletons people have in their closet. And if Jeffrey Epstein knew someone who knew someone with skeletons in their closet, you better believe he was going to use that to control them. All right. Speaking of control, it's a rigged election. We all know it's a rigged election. I think a lot of people were expecting that after a strong showing on election night, despite what Spencer Pratt felt, what he said, he went into this saying, I'm going to get 50% on election night. If that would have happened, it would have been over. He would have won, and he would have been the candidate. For people who don't know, the jungle primary that California has, everybody runs against each other. And if it comes down to two candidates or multiple candidates, none of which have received at least 50% of the vote, then those are the two candidates, the two top vote getters. Those are the ones that will actually have the general election in November. You could theoretically win the election at the primary if you get more than 50% of the vote. Obviously, Karen Bass didn't do that. And it looked like Nithya Raman, there's no way she was coming back from that. But again, I said, guys, they got 6 weeks. They got 6 weeks where they're going to continue to count votes. And continue to count votes they did. So, President Trump, earlier today, blasted the Los Angeles election because it was official last night. They say that Nithya Raman overtook Spencer Pratt in the ongoing vote counting because there were a number of seriously questionable drops of votes that happened over the weekend. But every single time, it seemed like Nithya Raman was getting a larger share of the vote than either Spencer Pratt or even Karen Bass. Now, Nithya Raman started out with a very small percentage of the vote, and it did not look in a real election scenario that she was going to be able to come back from that. She cried on election night. She basically gave up and said that everything was over. It looked like Spencer Pratt was very confident that he was going to be moving forward into the runoff with Karen Bass. And, of course, they just kept finding votes, and they just kept bringing them forward. Take a listen. Oh, actually, I'm going to need to
That's how I said goodbye to the
past this commercial
and
real
my
quick.
eyesight problems. My Japanese friend told me the secret of her
Race for LA mayor is narrowing by the day, and things are changing as we speak. A new batch of vote was just counted and recorded.
Yeah, the fight for second place is tight. It's gotten even tighter between a city council member, Nithya Raman, and reality TV star Spencer Pratt. Just seconds ago, Raman pulled ahead. Let's take a walk over to the big board and see where things stand at this hour. The batch of votes was about 50,000, so we're now at 720,000 votes. Nithya Raman has jumped into second place, passing the Republican Spencer Pratt.
She came back from behind by like 70 to 100,000 votes. This woman has been apparently like the largest single vote getter since election night ended. Spencer Pratt, in early and mail-in balloting before election day, was number one. Karen Bass, she had the name recognition. She got a little bit more on election day. But Spencer Pratt had gotten quite a bit more than Nithya Raman. Now, ever since election day, the votes have been stacked higher and higher for Nithya Raman.
Came into this day about 7,500 votes behind Spencer Pratt. Well, she is now about 3,000 votes ahead, 196,000 to 193,000. Karen Bass continues to stretch her lead out. She's almost at 35% total. Nithya Raman now in the driver's seat to make it to that November runoff. This is where we stood.
Now, when I said that they've got 6 weeks to count ballots, I wasn't joking, okay? I mean, like, they are fully expecting to count for, like, the next month. What's hilarious to me is that immediately, as soon as Nithya Raman got more votes than Spencer Pratt, they've already called it. They've already called it for Nithya Raman and Karen Bass. Nithya Raman projected to win, even though they know that there's a lot more votes that are going to be out there. And if it was Spencer Pratt who was still in the lead, you know that they wouldn't say Spencer Pratt is likely to win. They would, we still got ballots out there for Nithya Raman. We got to count them all. So Abe Hamada posted and said, it's clear California is incapable of running free and fair elections consistent with our Constitution that guarantees a Republican form of government for states, federalize the election. President Trump replied and said, no way this could have happened, rigged election. Now, remember last week, President Trump said, you'll see what's happening in California. They're rigging the election. He has said this numerous times. And he did an interview with Kristen Welker over the weekend. We're going to watch that in its entirety because it's gangbusters. We got to see the whole thing. One of the odd things that happened was that there was an update to the vote count over the weekend, and the vote totals for Raman and Bass both updated. However, there was no votes for Spencer Pratt that came in. And people were like, well, that's odd that you would have a ballot dump and all of them would be for the two Democrat candidates, not a single ballot for Spencer Pratt. Not a single ballot for Spencer Pratt. No, that's statistically impossible for that to happen. Now, there was a big argument about this online over the weekend. And eventually, they came out with the official reasoning is that, oh, of course, there was a glitch in the system. And that glitch in the system put the totals for Raman and Bass up. And then a minute later, it put the totals up for Spencer Pratt. That's, I guess, something that could happen, but it doesn't seem to me to be something that is likely to have happened, especially when a glitch like that, so to speak, never seems to favor a Republican candidate or America First candidate. And here we have Nithya Raman now being projected to win. Yesterday evening, she was now at that 3,000 votes ahead of Spencer Pratt. And very quickly, the mainstream media was willing to come out and say, Nithya Raman is it. Raman is our gal right here. Decision Desk. Decision Desk calls it. Even though there's lots and lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of ballots out there still to count. And for some reason, that's not loading. So we'll go past it. Now, I know this is cheating, okay, because I'm not stupid. I've seen this enough times. I mean, it's California. We expect it in California. Of course, there was a lot of high energy last week because it was great to see Spencer coming out and, having such a good showing early on. But it's demoralizing to the people of California, especially. Now, as has been said previously, it was only going to be Spencer Pratt and Karen Bass. And then at the 11th hour, Nithya Raman was asked to run as well so that she could be like a Pied Piper candidate. It would be easy for Bass to beat Raman in the general if she was unable to get to 50%. And it would be very difficult if she had to go up against Spencer Pratt for the next, several months. So I want you to look at this campaign statement that as soon as Decision Desk said Nithya Raman is likely to be the second place finisher, Karen Bass's people put out a statement that I know that they have been waiting to put out. And it's a statement that could not have been put out unless Nithya Raman was going to be the candidate that she was going to be going against. Following a commanding first-place finish, Karen Bass calls out Nithya Raman for years of allowing encampments outside of schools, cutting police funding, and ignoring our film and TV industry. I never heard her say any of these things prior to it becoming a two-person race. Her campaign staff said, we look forward to winning a contest against an opponent who allows encampments near schools, fights against hiring more cops, yet is MIA on saving Hollywood jobs and fighting back when ICE invades L.A. So, I mean, this statement could have been made by Spencer Pratt's campaign, right? Fighting back when ICE invades L.A. That's the only one. Okay, she's MIA on saving jobs and fighting back against ICE. Okay, that's what it was. Okay. But otherwise, I mean, like, these are arguments, besides the ICE stuff, that Spencer Pratt's campaign has made against both Nithya Raman and Karen Bass. So California's primary system, the jungle primary, it's set up specifically to fail so that they can have a circumstance like this. So rather than having one candidate that might actually do something different, you end up having two candidates go head-to-head, which are the choices of bad or even worse. Now, this system of jungle primaries was adopted back in 2010. I don't know who all across the United States does this kind of stuff, but I mean, it was done intentionally so that you'll have two Democrats at the end of the day. They control the votes. They control who counts the votes. They control the ability, to have ballots even make it to the count room. And since 2011 that they've been doing this, you get the two highest vote getters in any primary who advance to the general, regardless of party, again, bad or worse. And then at the very end, you end up with two Democrats and no Republicans. Now, they are still counting the governor's race. I don't even know where that's at. I think Steve Hilton has now fallen to second behind Xavier Becerra. Oh, let me also say this. Nithya Raman didn't even win her own district. Okay, like both Bass and Pratt beat her in her own district. So to think that she would be that popular anywhere in the city of Los Angeles is just totally ridiculous. Here's some other interesting facts about California's election system that lets you know there's obviously some cheating going on. As we have confirmed, California does not require identification at the polls in most circumstances. And in fact, Gavin Newsom actually prohibited this at the local level in 2024. Assembly Bill 1921, signed in 2016, expanded ballot harvesting, third-party ballot collection. You can do it from family members and household residents to anybody, and there's no limit on the number of ballots you can collect. But you can't get paid per ballot. So I suppose if you're just getting paid a per diem on a daily basis and it's not per ballot, then it's totally cool. They can still pay you to go pick it up. But there's no chain of custody, obviously. You can have nonprofit organizations go around and collecting these ballots only from places that they are likely to get ballots for the candidate of their choice, the one they want to win. If you have a mail-in ballot, and say it's missing the signature or it has something else that's not on there, you have up to several weeks, actually, to correct it. That's called ballot curing. They also have the motor voter program where they automatically register you if you come into the DMV. There have been a ton of errors as a result of that. You've also got something called conditional voter registration, which means that any eligible Californian who misses the 15-day registration deadline can still register and cast a ballot during the 14-day early voting period or even on election day. So there is, tens of thousands of people in California who have voted that way over the years. And since 2021, you've had automatic mail-in ballots getting sent to all registered voters, regardless of the actual legitimacy of the address or the number of people who live in a home or the type of address that it is. You can have ballots sent to a UPS box or a vacant lot. 80% of California voters who participated in the 2024 presidential election returned one of these universal mail-in ballots. All of these concerns that you have about it are exactly why California is trying to stop the federal government from coming in and doing an investigation into the voter rolls. Now, there are estimated to be roughly 3 million ballots still outstanding. Less than 3 million, roughly 3 million. And so that's a lot of ballots that could potentially come back with Spencer Pratt's name, with Karen Bass's name, or with Nithya Raman's name. Now, Another one of the problems we have here in California is that because those election rolls never get cleaned, you have people who are obviously no longer alive that are registered to vote, such as the instance of a 126-year-old registered California voter who has voted in 51 elections. Nick Shirley actually spoke with a local election integrity activist, and they went and found this 126-year-old voter, or rather, they went to look for Doris, who is a California resident, 126 years old, voted in the last 51 elections, which would mean that she would be born in 1904 or 1924. But really, this woman is not 126 years old. She was actually born in 1940, which makes her 86 years old. And she hasn't voted in 41 elections. And when Nick Shirley came to knock on her door and check to see if she was the same person, she was a little bit shocked. Let's go ahead and watch the video.
So how old is this person who's eligible to vote here inside the United States, inside the state of California?
126 based on the Secretary of State.
And this is Doris.
Yeah.
And now we're gonna see if Doris is home. Are you Doris?
She's right here. Yes.
Hello, Doris.
Yes.
How are you doing?
I'm good.
We're just going through the voting rolls here, and we're just confirming anybody who's above the age of 100 years old. And right here it says you're 126 years old.
No, you got the wrong house.
Are you Doris Wood?
Yeah, but you got the wrong house. I'm Doris, but you got the wrong place. That's the wrong information, all that stuff. No, that's wrong.
Oh, here, I can show you if you like.
No, it's just that it's wrong.
How come you think here in California they're just messing up on all these voting rolls here?
I don't know, because I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, it says you voted in 51 elections, Doris.
No, not me.
Really?
I'm not no 100-something years old.
I know.
I said I wasn't.
I just want to make sure you're not 126 years old.
No, I'm not.
Yeah, it really does say you're 126 years old here.
No,
Says-
Who did this be 126? That don't even make sense.
I know, that's what the Secretary of State says.
Well, the Secretary of State is wrong.
Okay, well,
Put it like this, I was born in 1940, so you figure that out.
all right, Doris. You have a good evening.
So then the question becomes just who in the hell is voting in Doris's place over the last 51 elections? Well, I found a really interesting post from this guy, Brian Dean Wright. He's a former CIA officer, so take it for what it's worth. But he goes into some detail about exactly how the intelligence community helps to steal elections. What is their role? He says, I'm a former CIA officer. Let me share with you how elections get stolen. We all know the CIA and the NSA create and execute clandestine operations that are designed to go undetected. The ranges from recruiting human spies to tapping phone systems to altering devices of all kinds. And yes, that necessarily means election and voting machines. The CIA and the NSA have teams to execute all of these operations and these missions at the direction of the president. Even those ops that are deemed impossible, like machines that are locked in rooms that are inside secure facilities, unhooked from the internet or whatever device that could tether them to the outside world. These tough intel operations require extensive planning, exquisite tradecraft, supporting operations, human, SIGINT, and MASSINT, and a degree of luck. Well, historic footage from Congress shows hearings that have both Democrats and Republicans saying that they were alarmed about voting systems with so-called unhackable machines because they knew then correctly that such a suggestion or claim was ridiculous. Why? Because they were briefed by NSA and CIA teams on how they, quote, hack the unhackable every month without leaving a trace. This is why a country like Taiwan and others are resolute on conducting elections the old-fashioned way. Same-day voting only, in person, using IDs, paper ballots, a counting process that's open to the public to watch and monitor, and results are announced the same night. Taiwan can do it with 24 million people in a single day. That means that any U.S. state can do it. So a refusal to do so is an intentional choice to open your electoral systems to vulnerabilities. That's what you're now seeing across the United States, primarily in Democrat-dominated locales, including Los Angeles. Those politicians choose broken systems. California's 30-day process to tally votes is obviously and intentionally vulnerable, that a reasonable person understands that it allows for manipulation, an assured electoral outcome by a dominant power, in this case, Democrats. And like any good intel op, you do it such that there are no fingerprints left behind, whether that be with machines, mail-in ballots, harvested ballots, etc. If you own the ops environment, everything is possible. Still, mistakes happen in an op. In the event of disclosure, you do what we often see Democrats in the media do. They deny, smear, and make counter accusations to preserve intentionally broken systems. Folks, this isn't about Spencer Pratt. This is about the future of what's left of our republic. Evil, seditious forces have broken our electoral system and gained great power using them. Mayor Bass is but one, using the machine that her Democrat Party has built to sustain her and leftist power. It's the modern Golden State version of old Chicago, New Jersey, or Huey Long corruption. They will deny it, obviously, because admission means a loss of power, money, and likely prison time. There's no incentive for them to clean up what's broken. Bottom line, Mr. Pratt's earnest desire to run a righteous race to fix his city faces long odds. He didn't just run against Karen Bass. He ran against a corrupt machine. But if nothing else, he has shown his fellow Angelenos that the nation that once again, we have an existential problem in our electoral system with intentional vulnerabilities and electoral fraud that naturally flows from that brokenness. And now it's up to the rest of us to fix it. There are solutions, none easy or polite, but we must do so, and by whatever means necessary, or the republic falls to communists and Cuba-trained agitators like Karen Bass. Those are the stakes. The time is short. And he reposted Spencer saying, me trying to figure out how votes get counted in LA. It's the guy from A Beautiful Mind. All right. Now, to what he just said about the media, all of those things he said we know to be true. Okay. We've been pointing this shit out for years. Any reasonable person looking at these circumstances, recognizing that a third world nation has no problem counting the entirety of their country's ballots in a single day out in the open, not having to do it behind closed doors, not having to use a black box within a black box to get it done, not having to worry about security violations or people taking the election and making it go in a certain direction. As soon as you talk about it, the media attacks. President Trump, recognizing that the election is obviously fraudulent in California. It's not the first time he's talked about it, won't be the last, but I think there's a reason his rhetoric has ramped up the closer we got to the election in California. He does an interview with Kristen Welker over the weekend where she tries to hit him on January 6th. She tries to hit him on election fraud. And President Trump basically made her eat a shit sandwich, and it was one of the most gratifying interviews I've ever seen. Let's take a listen.
This $1.8 billion so-called anti-weaponization fund, it was going to compensate people who say the federal government weaponized the legal system against.
I never said anything about Singapore, so I don't know where you got that, Miss Gray. And I didn't mention Singapore in the context of the article. So Singapore does it. Plenty of first world nations do it. My point was that if a third world nation can do it, like, say, India, then the United States of America should be able to do it as well.
It's been blocked by the courts, met with opposition from Republicans
and Democrats
in Congress and Democrats.
Excuse me, mostly Democrats.
Mostly
some
Democrats and some Republicans.
Some, very few Republicans.
Just to be very clear, are you backing off the fund completely, as your acting Attorney General Todd Blanche has said, or are you looking for another avenue to revive the fund?
So let me explain what the fund is. People have been hurt so badly by radical left lunatics that worked for the Biden administration and Sleepy Joe. They're vicious, they're violent. What they did to people And of course, they went after me more than anybody else. They raided Mar-a-Lago and all the other things. But people have been badly hurt. They've committed suicide. They've lost their jobs. They've lost their families. They've lost their wives. They've lost everything. They've lost everything over a fake weaponization of government. Now,
So
let
are
me
you
just tell
looking
you.
for a way to revive it?
Well, look, if it was up to me, I'd pay them the kind of money that they deserve. People have been destroyed. Lives have been destroyed. Many suicides. Think of it. People have committed suicide because a bunch of thugs went after them.
You don't.
Just so we're clear, the only journalists I know of that have committed suicide were pedophiles who were getting caught with child porn, that kind of thing. But in the instance of, people from January 6th, their lives were being ruined. They had an overzealous, overly powerful, deep state criminal machine coming to destroy them because the alternative was the admission that what we were saying was true, that the election was fraudulent, or that the events of January 6th were planned out well in advance and were intentionally allowed to happen so that they could use it as a weaponized piece against both President Trump and anybody who supported him.
Me, personally, I think the weaponization fund is a great idea, and so do many other Republicans. You have to get it approved. If they get it approved, that's great. If they don't get it approved, I'd be disappointed.
All right, we're going to motor through this.
But you have to understand, people have...
Now, just so everybody is aware, it's raining heavily where President Trump and Kristen Welker are speaking. And apparently they had taken a couple of breaks already because they were trying to wait for the rain to stop. It didn't. They're in the middle of a metal barn, and so you're going to be hearing the rain heavily.
Have been destroyed by crooked politicians, and they should be reimbursed for that.
Do you think anyone who attacked police officers on January 6th should get taxpayer money?
I wouldn't be inclined to say so, but I have to see it. I can tell you this, 97% of those people, you look at them, the FBI or whoever it was, because you had a lot of crooked cops, you had dirty cops. Comey was a dirty cop.
Well,
a guy
no
like Bolton was a dirty cop.
But there's no evidence.
Wait a minute. Oh, you think Comey was a straight
people
cop?
who pleaded guilty to assaulting police
Comey
officers.
was a dirty cop.
No,
they
but
had
the people
FBI.
who assaulted police
Listen
officers.
to me. They had FBI agents ushering them into the.
She's such a smug piece of shit. There, President Trump says he had FBI ushering them into the building. Absolutely, we know this. We saw it.
Looking at the tapes one time.
Would you take it off?
Look at, frankly, what they did was weaponization of our government.
But sir, there's no evidence of that. More than 1,000 people.
There's none. You know what you do? Try looking at the tapes one time.
Would you take it off the table?
Look at the tapes one time.
But 172 people did plead guilty to.
She can't admit any of this stuff because if she admits any of it, then it takes away the power of the narrative. Okay, they don't go for nuance when it comes to this stuff because they have to be able to smear the entirety of every single person who was in D.C. on January 6th. It doesn't matter to her that 97% of the people who were present in D.C. on January 6th had nothing to do with any sort of violence that was going on. Of course, doesn't matter as well that the FBI had confidential human sources in the audience. Doesn't matter that there were representatives of Ukraine's Nazi brigade. Doesn't matter to her about any of that stuff. Even if she's aware of it, she can't admit it. Hang on. I think I accidentally skipped over something important.
They had FBI go into the building. Those people walking around there looking, oh, isn't this nice? They weren't. They were being ushered into the building.
There's no evidence.
You had a bunch of dirty cops, and frankly, what they did was weaponization of our government.
But sir, there's no evidence of that. More than 1,000 people.
There's none. You know what you do? Try looking at the tapes one time.
Would you take it off the table?
Look at the tapes one time.
But 172 people did plead guilty to assaulting police officers.
You know why they pled guilty?
Should they be exempt?
Because they told they were going to jail
funds?
for 15 years if they didn't.
Should they?
They pled guilty because they were frightened. They went down. They were ushered into a building. Many of them were arrested without even going into the building.
You'd be okay with them receiving taxpayer dollars?
The people were destroyed by dirty cops and by weaponization. Many of those people should be compensated. Now, with that being said, as I understand it, the weaponization fund was going to set up a group of people, people that could be picked by anybody, fair people, smart people, and they will go on an individual case basis.
Okay.
Now, I don't know what's going to happen with the weaponization fund. I love the idea because people like you, the fake, dirty press, the crooked press, people like stupid Biden, he's not smart enough to know what's going on, but people that surrounded him, surrounded his beautiful, resolute desk in the Oval Office, what they did to the lives of people, they destroyed people. They sent people to jail who did nothing wrong.
All right, just to be very clear, there's no evidence of what you're saying, but...
There's no evidence. This is like the most frustrating argument that these people ever have. First, she said there's no evidence that the FBI ushered people into the building. It's fucking watch the tapes, okay? You know that she's obviously not going to admit it. And then there's no evidence that the election was stolen either because they never got a chance to go into a courtroom because the judicial system is completely corrupt and nobody apparently had any standing to stand up and say, hey, I think that there was something bad that happened here. They did their damnedest to keep as much of this out of the official courtroom, out of a court of law, never allowing it to be presented to a judge, never allowing the tapes from January 6th to be presented before a judge or to be used by anybody who was being prosecuted on January 6th. None of it even came out until after all of this had already been too late.
Let me
There's a
ask
lot
you
of
about
evidence.
Todd Blanche. Let me ask you about Todd Blanche.
Listen to me.
Let's talk
There's
about Todd
tremendous evidence. There's nothing
Well,
but
it's not been
evidence. The
presented
election
in a
was
court of
rigged.
law.
It was a dirty election.
Mr.
And it's
President,
happening again right now in
You've never
California.
presented evidence
It's happening
that the
right
2020
now in
election
California.
was rigged.
Right now, it's look at what's
Where's
happening
the
in
evidence
California.
to that?
It's
The
4
Republicans
days.
are doing well in
California, it's no, they're not. They're dropping fast because it's a rigged election. Let me tell you, it's 4 days. And they aren't even close to coming up with it.
That's how they count
You know
the
why
votes
they're doing
in
that?
California.
Because they're cheating on the election.
Do you have evidence to support
all
that?
I have to do is look. All I have to do is look.
That's not
And I
evidence.
listen. And I listen to people. And let's see what happens.
But, sir, that's not evidence.
Do you think
and
it's appropriate
That's how they
that
count the votes in
Do you
California.
think it's appropriate that they have an election and 5 days later they're nowhere close to picking a
State
winner?
and local officials acknowledge they are slow. They're urging.
No, they're crooked.
They're urging the
crooked.
votes to be counted quickly. That's how they vote
They're
in
crooked,
California.
just like you're crooked. Your press is crooked, and Meet the Press is crooked.
To be fair, I'm not crooked, but let's
Really?
Let's
Well, you
continue.
play right into their hands. then.
Let's continue.
You're either crooked or you're stupid.
Let's
you play
continue.
right into their hands with this rap. You know that these elections are rigged. Your network knows that they're rigged. You know that I won an election in a landslide, and I got 94% bad press.
But, Mr. President,
you know why I
you've
got
never
that?
presented
Because you have no
evidence.
credibility.
But you've never presented evidence that it was rigged. Let's keep talking about. I want to talk about Todd
You
Blanche.
have more evidence. There's more evidence than ever presented.
Let's talk
Your
about
elections
you
in
went
this
to
country.
court.
We're like a third world country.
But, sir,
your elections are crooked, and you're crooked, and Meet the Press is crooked,
Mr.
and so
President-
is ABC and CBS and CNN.
But, Mr. President-
You're one-sided crooked networks. All right, let's call it quits because I've had enough. Thank you, darling. Have a good time.
Mr. President, let's please. I traveled all the way to Wisconsin.
I've sat
I
in the
traveled
rain with
all
you.
I know. I
I've sat in the
traveled
rain
all the
with
way
you
to
for an hour,
Wisconsin.
on and off in the rain, and I've given you enough time. You ought to straighten out your press because you know what?
Mr.
A
President,
country can never be
We
great
traveled
with a dishonest
Listen,
press.
we
Come on,
traveled
let's go.
all the way to Wisconsin for this interview.
You're either crooked or you're stupid. And I think that the truth of the matter is she could be both. And I saw somebody ask in the chat whether or not she had been suspended. She's not being suspended. I'm sure that they absolutely loved the performance that she gave there. Now, let me take you to Spencer's timeline right here because there's a couple of things. So, first of all, the other day on the 5th, Spencer posted himself in front of City Hall, and he said, patience, okay? On the 6th is when he posts me trying to figure out how they count votes in L.A. And then right here, Karen Bass needs this lie to persist so you won't look at anything she did wrong to condemn us to burn. You're next to Sunland, Tahunga, Bel Air, Brentwood. Don't say I didn't warn you. This is about understanding how egregiously the media and California politicians are lying about the Palisades fire. They can't tell the truth about the Palisades fire either. They can't tell the truth about the fact that all these people are still homeless. Go to this website and see the data for yourself. Fire Rebuild meticulously sourced thousands of weather stations. You can see the actual wind speeds. Remember they said that there was hurricane speed winds or whatever? Well, none of that was true. There was no hurricane force winds. This was simply a fire that was allowed to burn. Now, after Nithya Raman was crowned the second place champion, despite the fact that nearly 3 million ballots are still outstanding, he said, remember, everyone, we are still in the lead, and we've got all the way till July 6th to keep counting. They're not the only ones who know where to find votes. So Spencer Pratt is not abdicating his position, and he's right. The ballots are going to keep getting counted until July 6th. Now, he said a net swing of more than 43,000 votes since Tuesday. 43,000, huh? Where have I seen that before? Well, if you'll remember, there's roughly 43,000 homeless people on any given night in the city of Los Angeles. We've already shown that these people are going out and paying homeless people to register to vote. Right here, 4 hours ago, Spencer said, folks, we are dealing with a fraction of a percentage point difference. There's still hundreds of thousands of votes outstanding, and LA officials have given us the next 3 weeks to count. Let's get her done. And I'm just going to refresh and see if he's posted anything else. Nope, that's the last thing he posted in regards to that. Now, this is just a perspective on how things can go wrong in California. Not necessarily wrong for anyone in particular. But back in 2010, this is when Kamala Harris was first running as Attorney General. Weeks before, she had already been declared the loser. But 4 weeks after she was declared the loser, because they continued to count ballots, Kamala Harris was crowned the winner, winning by less than 1%.
4 weeks after the November 2nd election, California finally has declared a winner in the Attorney General race. Harris finished so close to her Republican opponent that it took a month to finish counting every vote. She won by less than 1 percentage point. 4 weeks after the...
So, Spencer has already said he intends to continue counting. I would imagine that he intends to continue perhaps challenging ballots. We already know that the U.S. Attorney's Office in Los Angeles is already investigating the election in California, most likely from a number of different angles. But right here, this is just proof that Nithya Raman lost her own district where she is an elected official. And apparently more people are voting for mayor than governor, which doesn't make any sense because they're all on the exact same ballot. So right here, you can see based upon the district. In District 1, you've got a total of 22,700 people that voted for the mayor's race, and then 21,882 that voted for the governor's race. The same is true in District 2, in District 3, in District 4, in District 5, in District 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15. Literally every single district in the city of Los Angeles has more people on paper voting for the mayor's race than is voting for the governor's race. That makes absolutely no sense. Now, if you live in California, I show you this because I think that it's vital that you make sure that your ballot was even received and counted. This woman responded to Spencer and said, my husband voted for you. His ballot was dropped off with mine at a drop box. I tracked mine. It showed it was received June 5th. My husband's ballot has disappeared. Not only that, his information seems to have disappeared from the tracking and the registered voting websites. It's saying invalid credentials. We're waiting for an email from the Secretary of State. I suggest everyone track their ballot to see if it was received. So this is just another way that they're going in and trying to rig the election. Now, President Trump said in that interview that there is a lot of evidence, and I don't need to tell you guys that because we've obviously been going over it for years. But Patrick Kolbeck, who's another Michigan boy like myself, he has put together a website which details article after article showing hundreds of verified facts to show that the election system is rigged in the United States. You can check it out by going to electioncrimebureau.com. President Trump reshared Patrick Kolbeck's tweet or truth after his interview with Kristen Welker, just putting a spotlight on it. Now, here is a new tweet from Bill Asalee after the interview with Kristen Welker, after this supposed takeover by Nithya Raman. And it's just another indication that they are looking very, very closely. And again, keep in mind, we've got another month, basically, where they're going to continue to count these ballots. First Assistant U.S. Attorney for the Central District of California highlights Democrats stonewalling and dangerous loopholes that could let non-citizens and fraudsters cast ballots, all while the state hands out free health care to illegal migrants. So here in this post by Bill Asalee, he says, California is blocking a federal audit of its voter rolls. California allows first-time voters to register using forms of ID that most Americans would find surprising, including a gym membership card, an employer ID card, a credit or debit card, a prescription drug label, an insurance card, and we all know California provides free health insurance to undocumented illegal aliens. That's not all. There are a ton of additional ways that they will allow you to so-called prove your identity. But he says this is permitted when a voter fails to provide a social security number or a driver's license at registration. Our office believes this policy deserves a closer look. We also have serious concerns about how California maintains their voter rolls. There are open questions about whether the state is promptly removing deceased voters. We know they're not. Perhaps people who have moved and individuals convicted of disqualifying felonies. Nobody gets removed. They all stay on the rolls. For over a year, the Department of Justice has been trying to audit California's voter rolls. Federal law gives the Attorney General the authority to review state voter files and confirm that only eligible U.S. citizens are voting in federal elections. Harmeet Dillon, as you all know, sent California a letter explaining our legal authority. California refused to comply, claiming state privacy laws block the review, an argument that does not hold up because these laws don't apply to the federal government in this context. We've sued California in federal court, and the case is currently before the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. If California genuinely wants voters to trust their elections, it should open its records, not fight to keep them closed. What are they afraid of? Well, we know what they are afraid of. They're afraid because they know that their voter rolls are completely saturated with dead, no longer resident voters, with illegal aliens, anything that you could possibly imagine. You're going to find those on California's voter rolls. And the fact that they allow all of these ridiculous forms of identification to be used so that you can get registered to vote, the fact that they allow you to register to vote on the day of, the fact that they send mail-in ballots to every single person who's on that voter roll list, it's obvious that they are cheating. We don't need this to go to a court of law to know that right now. We do need it to go to a court of law so that we can stop it from happening in the future. Let me say thank you very much to Jim Kyle, who says, I worked on the island back in the late 80s. I saw one of the Kennedy females running topless along the shoreline. Sweet. I mean, I hope she was running for a good reason. Cheatin' Old Joe says, good Monday red pill from the Ville Platte, Louisiana. Sweating like hostages over here. Awesome, brother. Thank you. I wish I could do a proper, like Louisiana Creole accent. Good Monday red pill from the Ville Platte, Louisiana. Sweating like hostages over here. That's about as good as I can get. Okay, Lee Walden says, Zach, the beast of the people, you effing rock. I wish I knew how to clip and share your very insightful observations. Thank you, sir. Oh no, I completely forgot to hit start recording on, well, I'm going to have to start right now. I'm supposed to be recording this so that I can clip everything later, and I forgot to do it. Okay, entering the studio, and now I am recording. Okay, so I'll get the rest of the show. Okay, there we go. Okay, we're good. We're good to go. Dang it, I got to remember to do that next time. Okay, thank you for that, Lee. Also, Louis Beam Me Up says leftist discourse is just pretending not to understand things, thus making discourse impossible. Yes, and repeating the same thing over and over and over again, and talking over people. They are totally dishonest intellectually. Lee Walden said, if I had my way, I'd bring out the Trump thump in these bitches. Thank you to Magadai for the can. Appreciate you, Magadai. Thank you to Moon Baby for the What Up Family. Thank you to One Thunder for the 114 gold pills. And thank you to Filter Dog, who says California planned this. Oh, yeah, there's no doubt in my mind. They absolutely planned it. Karen Bass planned the addition of Nithya Raman. Let's see what she just posted here. As we witness shady shifts in California election results, we now know why Gavin Newsom and California Democrats rushed SB 73 into law as an emergency measure and passed AB 2230 a week before the election to undermine investigations of election fraud. Corrupt stuff is going on here, folks. Let's take a listen.
Point of information.
State your points.
Don't we have to wrap up this bill in time for the governor's 1:30 press conference to feed the media?
Your point is not well taken, Mr. DeMaio.
Moments ago, in speaking against a similar bill as part of this ICE is awful, let's attack ICE bill package, I raised the question, are we actually dealing with a real problem? Or are the backers of these bills inventing in a hysterical fashion problems that do not legitimately exist because they have a different purpose? Not good public policy, but to defame, attack federal law enforcement officers. I think the record is quite clear. I mean, we have extra observers here from the media, and welcome. I always love the transparency that you bring to this chamber in our proceedings. But something tells me that this may be choreographed. I'll let you decide. A package of bills, all with the same theme, with hysterical undertones, with very little basis in reality. So this bill, AB 2230, would have us believe one of two problems are being addressed. Option one, we have a lot of illegal immigrants voting in our elections because AB 2230 says, hey, we got to keep ICE out of the polling centers. Well, why else would ICE be showing up at a polling center in California but for the fact there would be illegal immigrants there? And you have not responded to that. That is what apparently you are raising as a real probability with this bill. Are you saying the quiet part out loud? No wonder you oppose citizenship verification of our voter rolls, because you apparently are agreeing that it is a problem with AB 2230. Why else say we have to rush a law, enact a law, saying ICE cannot show up at the polling center? Or here's the second option. Maybe you don't believe that illegal immigrants are routinely added to our voter rolls, and instead you're playing politics. You're trying to create a hysterical narrative that doesn't actually exist. I actually think it may be a combination of both, and that is why I asked you for a no vote on AB 2230.
All right. Well, obviously, they did not get the no votes because California is completely controlled by the people who wanted this to pass. Now, I want to put this out there, and I hope people out there are listening. But let me just be the first to say, or maybe not even the first that you've heard say, that Hunter Biden coming on Twitter and making cheeky posts and talking to people about his former drug use, calling out the banks, calling out the elites, this is not an organic phenomenon. Hunter Biden is very wealthy. He has hired himself a public relations team, and they have crafted a comeback story for him. Started a couple of months ago when he started doing a couple of podcasts. Do a soft introduction. The real Hunter Biden. Oh, I go on Sean Ryan. Then I go on Candace's show. And then I come on Twitter. Okay, Hunter Biden starts getting into the crooks and crannies of your mind. So then people see that he's on Twitter. And so, oh, gosh, let's go ahead and hear what Hunter Biden has to say. And then they see him being low-key based, kind of funny, chatting people up, responding to them on Twitter, talking about how he's come back from the brink. Oh, he's now a recovery coach in addition to being a failed artist. And people start following him and they start liking his posts and they start amplifying those posts. And people start thinking, hey, maybe Hunter's not such a bad guy. No, let me tell you, Hunter Biden is still a bad guy. Hunter Biden talking to you on Twitter is not the real Hunter Biden. He's not addressing any of the key claims about his corruption other than saying there was no corruption or that, he had his laptop stolen. I hope you know that that's not true. But do not fall for Hunter Biden's internet charm and believe that he is somehow on our team. He's not. But there are plenty of people out there who are watching him. Now, I think Hunter Biden's going to run for office. I think that his public relations comeback is related to him trying to parlay the Biden name into the next generation of corrupt politicians. And it's only a matter of time before he throws his hat in the ring because Hunter Biden has no source of income anymore. The Biden crime family is no longer bringing in money. All of the money that he had, he likely spent on crack cocaine and renting expensive cars and thousands of dollars a day on Airbnbs. And of course, he has a lot of child support payments that he has to make for that baby that he abandoned that he had with a stripper. Hunter Biden is not a good dude. President Trump was asked about Hunter Biden over the weekend, and he was asked about him in relation to, well, the subject came up in relation to Graham Plattner. I haven't really talked about Graham Plattner. He's a clown. But Graham Plattner is the guy who had the Nazi Waffen tattoo on his chest and was still like, he was recruited to run for Senate against Susan Collins in Maine. Susan Collins still sucks. But is Graham Plattner better than her? I don't think so. I don't live in Maine, though, so that's not up to me to decide. So President Trump said that given the success of Graham Plattner, who also has come out as a sexual lech, having affairs behind his wife's back and, chatting people up, talking about how he'd love to rape chicks on the internet. He had a Reddit account where he was just saying all kinds of vile stuff. And then, of course, James Tallarico, the trans baby whisperer, he said, given the success of these two guys, Hunter Biden could potentially win the Democratic nomination for president in 2028. I could see it happening, to be perfectly honest with you. He said, somebody said, he said, you would think, given Hunter's past, your past has something to do with winning an election. And I would say his past, Hunter's, is not that great. And of course, remember, where's Hunter? Where's Hunter? I still want to know what happened to Hunter Biden and what about the Biden crime family, except that, of course, he has his presidential pardon. He thanked his dad on Twitter as well. He said if the guy from Maine can do it, that's Graham Plattner, I guess Hunter can do well, too. He said Plattner's a basket case, but he's not worse than James Tallarico. James Tallarico, I would say, is worse. But what's worse about him is that he looks like Alfred E. Newman. I would say if he can do well, maybe Hunter can do well. I'm not sure. It would be pretty close as far as I'm concerned. So Hunter is in the middle of a rebrand on X. He's putting himself out there as a Bitcoin bro, an anti-establishment political figure, somebody who wants to stand up against the man. He wants to bring the left and the right together, and he wants to do it through social media posts and internet appearances. So he was on Candace. On that interview, he slammed the DC elite of the left. He discussed Israel. He discussed the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Of course, he's going hard on the Epstein files. And he also went viral on X for some of his responses. In one post, he claimed that someone called him the MAGA whisperer because you got people on the right who are coming and following him and interacting with him on X. And he said, I'll take the title. And he slammed both the Democrat and Republican parties. And he said, love your neighbor, be yourself, but still F Jake Brick Tamlin Tapper on any timeline. So this is what he said in its entirety. WTF timeline are we on? Someone called me the MAGA whisperer, and I'll gladly take the title. Left, right, D, or R, we all want the same things. We're being divided on purpose by the Epstein elite oligarch class, because as long as we're at each other's throats, they get fat and rich off our misery. The second we figure out we agree on more than we disagree, they're done. Love your neighbor. Be yourself. Radical honesty. No F's given, no F's taken. Everything else is just noise. Still Jake Brick Tamlin Tapper anytime. So then he responded to President Trump's comments, and he said, the MAGA whisperer strikes again. And of course, people were all over it because people get obsessed with internet celebrity, and they think that this is somehow super based for Hunter Biden to come out there. I mean, he's not saying anything that others haven't said. Oh, the left and the right, sure, we just want to live. We don't want to be subjected to the whims of the elite. No, of course we don't. But the point is that the left always subjugates the right because they believe that they have the moral authority, they have the moral high ground to enforce their views on people like us. They believe that they're so correct that it is permissible to not only force their views and activities and behaviors upon us, it's also totally fine to put us in prison. It's also totally fine to stop us from using our freedom of speech, to debank us, to kick us off the internet. All of those things are totally okay because they are the right ones. We are the wrong ones. So they'll go ahead and do whatever they want to do. Now, let me actually show you a post that Hunter Biden did not respond to. This is from Data Republican. And she actually ratioed Hunter Biden on X when she made this post. Hang on, I gotta find it in my bookmarks. Come on. Data Republican. Okay. Okay, I guess I'm going to have to search for her because maybe I didn't bookmark it like I thought I did. Okay. Yeah, okay, I got it. Dang it. Nothing is working correctly. Okay. So Hunter Biden wants to pretend he's not one of the elites. Hunter Biden didn't come from a powerful political family. Hunter Biden didn't engage in the exact same behaviors that he's pretending to rail against right now. She says, hello, Mr. Hunter Biden. You're getting 6-digit likes on every post lately. I don't have any hope to ratio you or whatever through traditional hello means. But for those uninitiated, those who are captivated by your fake, humble persona, obviously PR generated to capture unsuspecting, disaffected Republicans, you are not some humble, witty guy turning over a new leaf. You are the ultimate proof of nepotism, everything that the so-called Epstein class is supposed to represent. Let me explain off the top of my head. You were a board member of USGLC, the U.S. Global Leadership Coalition. Now, he was. That's verified. I've actually talked about it on the show years ago. This is true. This is the most powerful NGO that nobody's ever heard of. Last year, I documented in several threads how Liz Schreier, the lead at USGLC, took credit for ramming through a $90 billion bill for Ukraine in 2024. Even as Matt Van Swoel demonstrated that Western North Carolina got zero help in the aftermath of Hurricane Helene because FEMA threw up their hands and said they just ran out of funds. USGLC arguably is the most powerful NGO that no one's ever heard of. It includes a bunch of corporations, a bunch of nonprofit leads, and for some magical reason, I documented extensively and linked that Liz Schreier started pursuing you in 2012. During the Obama years, when you were Biden's son, and that's it. Are you a former Secretary of State? No. Are you a CEO of a Fortune 500 company? No. Well, that puts you below the average USGLC board member by a good tier. So what did get you on USGLC? Well, pretty obvious. The only reason is that you were the son of a sitting vice president who was known for corruption, and you yourself were also known for corruption. You're not folksy. You are the worst of the elite. most of the elite, at least, get their credentials through Georgetown or George Washington or the Harvard School or the Kennedy School of Business at Harvard. You got yours purely on nepotism. Any photographs you have of yourself at motels is proof that you are so incompetent that you waste all your money, not that you've come from humble beginnings. Because others, like Marco Polo, have thoroughly documented that you benefited a great deal from your nepotism. You even tried to bait those in with saying you prefer to keep immigration legal. But we all know the trap that keeps illegal immigrants here is outlaw deportations and make every immigrant case asylum, and magically, everyone who might have been here illegally a few years ago is now legal. You may get 175,000 likes on your semi-subverting PR-designed photographs, but those of us who know you are fake. And the reason she replied to Hunter Biden retweeting Don Jr. doing an ad for Goldco. And he said, oh, this is the type of shit that needs no words to troll itself. This is actually real. He's really posting infomercials, plugging this, using America's 250th birthday, too. More like, as my dad tanks the economy as fast as he can, nothing is more patriotic than getting your hands on some Don Jr. gold to celebrate America's 250th anniversary, in case it's our last. This is SNL material, or even better, smoke fleet material. I don't know what that means. But Hunter Biden got 42,000 likes on that, and Data Republican got 47,000 likes on her post exposing Hunter Biden. Now, I'd also like to play for you a clip from Dr. Clown. You guys really should be following Dr. Clown. He is doing some great short AI videos. Lately, it's been a bunch of simulators for different types of circumstances. He did an Indian truck driver simulator, and now he's done a Hunter Biden simulator.
Rules are for normal people. Me, I just keep getting away with it. You think they search people like me? They don't. See? Told you. And that's just the boring part. I don't do boundaries, and I never miss a payday. You don't hide the scandal. You post through it. You think you've got what it takes. Rules.
That is exactly what it's like. Hunter Biden is the very personification of nepotism. Let's see. Principled Enigma. Heaven Taste as well. Hold on. I got to go through a couple of these. Okay. Principled Enigma says, people like Welker are committing sedition, denying facts, ignoring plain evidence, and saying it's not there when it is. How is that not sedition when it's in the public's face? Well, technically, it's freedom of speech. But I think that journalists should be held to a higher account. Lee Walden says, if I had anyone that knew how we could share the Trump, I'm confident that it will piss off all the minds of mush. Heaven Taste says, thank you, Zach and Lisa, for all your work day in and day out. I appreciate you. All my love to you both and to everyone in the chat. It's my birthday, too. Happy birthday, Heaven Taste. Happy birthday. Thank you so much for the rant. I appreciate it. Let's see. Principled Enigma also says presidential pardons should not be allowed if somebody has legitimately committed crimes. I don't think that you're going to get very far with that, because a lot of presidential pardons are given for people who legitimately committed crimes. I mean, that's the whole point of it, is that if somebody committed a crime and the president wants to pardon them, he has the power to do it. Pardons should be only applied to those that are wrongfully convicted. That is actually in the spirit of the law. You said it twice. Okay. 3 times. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. LG Fontez says, I'm calling it Hunter's a ploy by the DNC, DCCC, LLCs, as they, and same for the Republicans, to start a third party by 2028. And I might be surprised if it's not called the America First Party. It may be Hunter Biden and Tucker Carlson as a ticket in 2028. Keep your eyes on that one. Let's see. Thank you also to No Thanks Joe, who says, hey, Lisa and Zach, I hope you had a great weekend, and I look forward to the new week of reporting and exposing. Thank you all. God bless. Be safe. You as well. Filter Dog says, what led you to believe that the LA mayor's race was decided last week? I did not believe that the LA mayor's race was decided last week. What I said was that if somebody got up more than 50%, the race would be decided. What I said was that Spencer Pratt and Karen Bass were claiming victory and that Nithya Raman had given a concession speech. And I clearly said at the same time that we reported on it the day after the election that they had 6 weeks to continue to count ballots. So I never said that the election was decided last week. Okay, now, before we continue, I do have one quick message from our friends over here on a Rumble. Let me get that pulled up. And right here. All right, you guys, you know that America is about to hit a major milestone, our 250th birthday. That's 250 years of freedom, grit, sacrifice, and the greatest experiment in self-governance the world has ever seen. This is the perfect moment to help your kids understand why this country matters, not just the fireworks and the hot dogs, but the story behind it all. There is, of course, a free guide called The Kid's Guide to America's 250th Birthday, and it's honestly a great way to introduce kids to how America began, who those founding fathers were, what they risked, and why the ideas they fought for still matter today. This guide is going to send those kids back to the moment those brave men signed the Declaration of Independence, and then when they did, they knew full well they were risking everything for freedom. It's going to break it down in a way that will make it fun and entertaining and enjoyable. It's not going to water it down or turn it into schoolwork. So if you care about raising kids who know where this country came from and why it's worth preserving, this is definitely something you're going to want to grab. And the best part is it's completely free with this special offer. You just pay the $2 for shipping and handling. So head to freeusabirthday.com. That is freeusabirthday.com. And the Kids Guide to America's 250th Birthday is there for your kids today, because America's story matters. Let's make sure the next generation knows it. You can also use the QR code that you see on screen. Thank you very much. Also, thank you very much to Rise Attire, who says, lest we not forget, the Bidens own Water Island, only 7 nautical miles from Little St. James, complete with a submarine dock. Nothing to see here. Yeah, hearing Hunter Biden talk about the Epstein class is just about the most hilarious thing that I've ever heard. All right, so over the weekend, you had another dust-up between Israel and Iran, and Israel and Hezbollah in Lebanon exchanged some missiles back and forth. President Trump had a call with both Israel and Iran, and he said he wanted everybody to stop shooting immediately. Iran has agreed to stop shooting, and I'm going to call it and say that if anybody starts shooting again, it's probably going to be Israel, because every single time we get close to a peace deal being clinched, it seems to be Israel that throws a monkey wrench in it. And I've said this so many times before, but Israel benefits from the continuation of the war. Nobody in the Middle East is benefiting more than Israel. And, of course, President Trump has what is a seemingly insurmountable task in front of him, bringing everybody together, getting the peace to be a lasting and measurable peace rather than just something on paper. And the longer it goes on, the more things are getting hit. And there was the Kuwaiti airport that was hit last week by an Iranian missile. There was a helium production factory in the Middle East that was hit. That was like 33% of global helium production just taken out all at once. Helium is used for a lot of stuff that people wouldn't even realize, and that will be billions of dollars and several years to bring that stuff back online. So the quicker we get to some peace, the better off we are. And if they could just keep their fingers off the trigger, then I think that we'll be in a good spot. All right. Now, I do believe that the investigation into California election fraud is continuing. It's ongoing. It's been ongoing since before the election. And I think that President Trump has said on numerous occasions related to that, wait and see. Let's see what happens. And that's really all we can do. Okay, I think that the people around him are aware, have been aware of just how corrupt the California election system is, because they know that that same pattern has been replicated all around the country. We've had a number of specific investigations beginning in other states. We are still waiting for the results of those things. We've got grand juries. We've got FBI investigations. We've had Tulsi Gabbard being involved with seizing the ballots in Fulton County, with seizing the ballots in Arizona, with seizing the election machines in the Philippines. And Smartmatic has a really big part to play in California's elections, the software on their electronic voting machines. And we still haven't heard much publicly from the Venezuelan election whistleblowers. I think that those two things are going to intersect. And so that's where I'm really looking to have the next big, like, boom, wow moment. So they'll continue to try to cheat. And, of course, the others will continue to try to make this as fair and free as possible. I think that ultimately exposing the fraud is the only way that we're going to be able to do that. Otherwise, it's just going to continue on in the same way it has before. Let's see. Thank you to... Okay, thank you to G. Fontes, who says, so while the Democrats run an almost guaranteed loser like Biden, as his ego's expendable and depending on the funding, that might be funneled back from, say, Ukraine and too late to track by Besant. I would imagine that any money that goes to Ukraine during the Trump administration is going to be watched very, very closely. The exact nature of that being disseminated, I think the Trump administration, there's no way that they would allow any of that to go over there without having eyes on it the entire time. But yes, I mean, Hunter Biden running for president, that's another opportunity for him to grift. Lee Walden says, if I had my way, I'd share the Zak attack with the whole world. I can hope that someone in the family might give the gift to share the Zak attack. That would be awesome. I'm not going to hold my breath, but thank you, Lee. G. Fontes also says, but they'll have multiple candidates to try to make debates from local seats up to the presidency, using speeches to slogans like a mix of Reagan, Obama, and Ron Paul. And all of that will include many of the most palatable to already popular persons from both sides of the current aisle, with the ultimate goal for the White House. But even a dozen congressional seats will provide them with massive power. Yes, and that's another one of the reasons why I'm hoping that the election system is exposed and then fixed before we get to that point. Will to Push Forward says, hey, Zach and Lisa, sorry I missed your show the past couple of days, but I'll keep trying to keep up. Our daughter was born last Thursday. Congrats. 2:44 a.m. I wanted to mention this to you. I posted a photo in my profile. Oh, that's awesome. Will to Push Forward, congratulations on the birth of your daughter. That is awesome, man. That is such a blessing. Awesome. All right, so... there is a new House Oversight report that just dropped. We were speaking, I believe, last week about the possibility of any politicians being indicted before the midterms. And I said, if there is going to be anybody indicted, I believe it would be Keith Ellison and Tim Walz. And this report shows that Keith Ellison and Tim Walz were aware, not like they just looked the other way, but they were fully aware of the rampant fraud that was taking place in Minnesota for the last 6 years. So going back to 2019, but they specifically looked the other way because they didn't want to target Somalis. So now criminal referrals are being filed with the Department of Justice, and that is obviously going to go immediately to the new fraud division. Let's take a listen.
As top officials like the governor, Tim Walz, and the AG, Keith Ellison, they were aware of the fraud as early as 2020, but they still allowed the payments to go out to the fraudsters. And they say because, according to the report, the reason they did, concerns of potential racial discrimination claims, because many of the defendants are from the Somali immigrant community.
So this is woke gone wrong again. You got people that are committing criminal acts, taking money from taxpayers. Many of these people immigrated to the country. Some of them are not even citizens of the country. And they're using it for fraudulent purposes. And the government knew about it. They didn't do anything about it because they are considered a protected class.
And they attacked the whistleblowers.
Right.
That's part of the report.
Right. So the House Oversight letter to J.D. Vance, this is what they said in that letter. So the committee requests that the White House task force to eliminate fraud thoroughly review all of Minnesota's social services programs in light of the vulnerabilities created by efforts of state officials who, instead of mitigating fraud, actually sought to cover up or minimize reports and findings of fraud. Specifically, the committee's investigation found that senior officials in Minnesota state government, including Governor Walz and Attorney General Ellison, were aware of widespread fraud in federally funded social service programs for years, possessed the legal and procedural authority to stop the payments and ban fraudulent providers, but repeatedly failed to act. As a result, potentially billions of American taxpayer dollars were paid to fraudulent actors.
Yeah, they reportedly have $9 billion, they said, has been stolen on high-risk Medicaid spending.
All right, so the only thing I care about is that people at the highest levels get charged with allowing this fraud to take place. And we know that much of this money ended back into the political coffers of people like Tim Walz. Of course, people like Keith Ellison. Keith Ellison specifically had a conversation on tape with the Feeding Our Future fraud scammers, okay, and said that he was going to be advocating on their behalf. The top law enforcement agent of the state of Minnesota, who at this time was aware that this fraud was taking place. G. Fontes says, and if they are able to require enough seats, 6 to 12, would be enough to sway by either of the long-standing parties to get anything from Congress to the president on day one. You know, you're right. I mean, I'm not going to argue with that, but Congress is already so ineffective. They don't get anything done as it is. Principled Enigma says sedition equals conduct or speech inciting people to rebel against the authority of a state or monarch. She did this to the president in front of the entire country. I agree that she was rude, and I agree that her constantly claiming that there is no evidence is enraging, but I just don't know if it would rise to the level of sedition. My apologies for continuing to interrupt. I think this was plenty to make my point. No, you're fine, bro. Don't worry about it. All right, over the weekend, we also had a stash house that was discovered by Texas DPS agents where members of the cartel were engaging in not only the sale of drugs, but also human trafficking. They found this house in Maverick County. There were 4 illegal aliens inside, and one of them was a criminal gang member. They got information that this stash house was potentially inside a hotel room in Eagle Pass. The troopers talked to a woman inside the room who allowed them in for a search, and they could smell marijuana. They found 4 illegal aliens in the room hiding under blankets, and at least one of them was a member of a gang, and they were all in the United States of America illegally. One of them was wanted in New Orleans by authorities for numerous felony warrants, aggravated assault with a gun, and armed robbery. He was taken into custody. The other 3 were handed over to Border Patrol.
How y'all doing? Hey, with the state police, hey, everybody's gonna have to leave. They don't want anybody here, okay? Yes, sir. So, who else here?
I'm here.
Gotcha, bitch. Got him. And a new figure has come out. People were most likely aware that this was probably going on, but it's been determined that 80 to 90% of H-1B applicants from India contain fraudulent documents or unqualified applicants. And this was something that had come out previously by a person working at the State Department. But now a diplomat has come forward and also made the same claim. So after a segment on Fox News over the weekend, there were a number of posts, people discussing this problem. And in this segment on Fox, they focused heavily on H-1B filings that are tied to India. There are counterfeit degrees that people are getting. A former U.S. consular officer had said that she had encountered widespread fraud. And, of course, there was we've got a ton of H-1B people who are in the country right now. These are primarily the people who are coming in and taking jobs from Americans in these high-paying tech center jobs. Now, I guess that Chip Roy is pushing for legislation designed to overhaul the H-1B system. And according to the figures that were highlighted in the segment, you've got nearly 7 million H-1B related filings that have been processed since 2015. Roughly 70% of them are tied to India, 12% are tied to China. Among those numbers, it shows that the program is less about attracting rare elite talent and quite a bit more likely about just a mass foreign labor pipeline. Again, I don't think that's news to anybody. But during this segment is when they reported on a former U.S. diplomat, Mahesh Siddiqui, She alleged that 80 to 90% of H-1B applicants from India that she reviewed involved fraudulent documents or who were unqualified applicants. The allegations reflect her consular work, which actually goes back to 2005 to 2007. We don't actually have current information about this. However, I would suggest the problem is at least as bad, if not worse. So a lot of people started looking into this, and turns out that there's actually quite a bit of reporting that's been done over the years, but it just kind of tends to slip through the cracks. One of these fake degree mill institutions, it's called Manav Bharti University, has previously been linked to the alleged sale of tens of thousands of bogus college degrees. There was a report in 2021 in the South China Morning Post where investigators found that university had sold around 36,000 fake degrees for as little as $1,300 a pop, which meant that immigration restrictionists began to argue that fraudulent credentials can easily become a gateway into jobs, universities, and visa channels where America tends to not enforce their own rules. There was another case involving Kerala police. They seized more than 100,000 counterfeit certificates linked to 22 universities. And while those documents are obviously not H-1B visas, it just shows how wide a scale the problem is, which anybody can get one of these fraudulent degrees in India and then present it as a real credential. And then, of course, they are helped into the country through these small firms, which will claim that they're going to be placed someplace. We've gone over statistics in the past showing that a single H-1B applicant will have a potential job at like hundreds of different businesses. Not too many of them are even real. So in 2020 to 2024, 28% of the H-1B cap subject petition recipients were tied to wage level 1 and 50% were tied to wage level 2. So in other words, most of the program's cap subject petition recipients were not in the highest wage tiers. That confirms that companies are just primarily using H-1B not to hire tech geniuses, but just basically to fill out ordinary white-collar jobs that they would otherwise have to pay Americans more for. Now, taking a look at some of these specific cases, here is an article from 2014, and it shows a real pattern of people coming from India, getting degrees and moving to the United States, and then turning out to be totally fake. Right here, this guy was allegedly a doctor. He seemed like the Doogie Howser of India. He was able to crack the country's best medical school. He worked there as a 21-year-old doctor. His name is Anup Shankar. He later claimed to have a PhD in epidemiology, and he treated patients even as he researched population-wide diseases. He won a genius visa to America. He got millions in grant funding, and he boasted of membership in the prestigious Royal College of Physicians. In 2012, West Virginia University handpicked this international star to help heal one of the country's sickest states. At that time, at 37, Shankar was nominated to the first endowed position in a new school of public health backed by $1 million in public funds. As chair of the epidemiology department, he was also poised to help the university spend tens of millions of dollars in tax money. This is about improving healthcare and improving lives, said University President Jim Clements, announcing a federal grant for health sciences. We could not be more proud. But the problem was that Mr. Shankar was not a PhD. He did not graduate from the Harvard of India. He did not write dozens of the scholarly publications on his resume. And as for the Royal College of Physicians, they had never heard of him. He does have a master's in epidemiology from the University of North Carolina, and he does have an Indian medical degree, but at least 2 of his green card references that attested to world-class creativity, genius insight, and a new avenue for treating hypertension were a forgery. These are just some of the results from an inquiry into Shankar's history, one that began as a standard pre-appointment review only to dilate into an ongoing, overlapping 18-month investigation. The case has also captured the attention of two West Virginia University offices, the Mongolia County Courts, U.S. Immigration, and Ian Rocket, who is the chair of Promotion and Tenure Committee at the School of Public Health. Once these people figured out that this guy was a total fake, it was kind of inconvenient. It's not the only one. Here's another article from June of 2020 that I found. 3 Indian American doctors find themselves at the center of a raging medical research scandal, which, of course, raises questions about ethics, conflict of interest, and they're also charged with relying on fake data. You have Dr. Amit Patel, one of these 3 doctors that you see on screen. He's in the United States at the center of a raging medical research scandal. He's had his faculty position terminated by the University of Utah, where he was the chief of cardiothoracic surgery. The other 2, Dr. Manip Mehra, an MD from Harvard, and Dr. Sapan Desai, a surgeon in Chicago, have both been charged with unethical practices. Mehra has tendered an unconditional apology and confessed that he had written or lent his name as lead researcher to several research papers without even accessing the data that was supplied by Dr. Desai. Patel, too, has distanced himself from Desai, who happened to be his brother-in-law. Patel, who apparently introduced the 2, has also distanced himself from his brother-in-law. The 3 collaborated on and wrote several research papers in reputed medical journals promoting or debunking the use of specific drugs and their side effects while dealing with their efficacy in treating COVID-19 patients. The pattern is the same. Desai's firm, Surgisphere, located in an upscale residential area outside of Chicago, had supplied the data based on which the trio allegedly drew their conclusions. Both Patel and Mehra claim to be lead investigators with access to data that they claim to have analyzed. But a study of the trio appeared in The Lancet in May in which it was claimed that the anti-malarial drug hydroxychloroquine, promoted by President Donald Trump as a magic cure for COVID, and the large number of medicine was supplied by India to the United States at the request of the president, was actually not effective and had led to higher mortality rates among patients. I am certain that that paper, which they fraudulently produced, was quoted without any critical thinking by members of the mainstream media during the COVID-19 pandemic. It goes on, but suffice to say, these guys produced even more fake work. Well, we have another case, also from an Indian emigrating to the United States of America, this time from Baton Rouge, Louisiana. The U.S. Attorney April M. Leon announced that Samrat Mukherjee, 35, of Baton Rouge, pled guilty before U.S. District Court Judge John W. DeGravalis to false statements relating to healthcare matters. His conviction is punishable by a term of up to 5 years in prison, a fine of $250 or twice the gross gain or loss, whichever is worse, and of course probation for 3 years. According to admissions made as part of his guilty plea, Mukherjee was a licensed paramedic who worked for Acadian Ambulance Service. He did not attend or graduate medical school. However, he admitted that while employed by Acadian Ambulance, he falsely presented himself to coworkers and friends as a licensed medical doctor. In order to perpetuate his lies, he created a fake medical degree, fake residency match letter, and he attended a celebration for his medical school graduation despite never having attended medical school. By falsely holding himself out as a medical doctor, Mukherjee was given physician access privileges at several hospitals where he spent time seeing patients in the intensive care unit, among other areas of the hospital. He wore MD and flight surgeon insignia on his clothing, and he was given badges from multiple area hospitals and Acadian Ambulance, which identified him as a physician. He had been doing this since May of 2019. He also called in various prescriptions to pharmacies for himself and others. How in the hell do you do that when you're not a doctor and you don't have the number that you need to write prescriptions? Is it just people see an Indian who claims to be a doctor and they don't question it until it's far too late? I mean, this appears to be happening over and over and over again. I've only gone over 3 different instances of this, but this is obviously something that has happened thousands, if not tens of thousands of times, over and over and over again. So now, in the spirit of that, I'd like to play this video, which deals with the H-1B visa issue in Frisco, Texas. We've spoken about Frisco just last week, so take a listen. And for those of you who are unable to see the video, this is probably one of those that you're going to want to watch the video of.
Here's a little story about Frisco, Texas. Pretty much everybody drives a Lexus. A growing wealthy suburb just north of Dallas. $1 million houses, man, each one a palace. The Cowboys around here ain't all boots and cactus. They play pro football. Frisco's where they practice. They're America's team, the most beloved in the nation. But Frisco has another growing population. Cowboys and Indians, that's who you'll find here. Cowboys and Indians, more coming every year. Only two kinds of people live around this town. One's a fan of football and the other is brown. Welcome to Frisco, home of Cowboys.
Show Bob! Show Bob!
You wake up in your mansion with a brand new neighbor. He somehow drives a Tesla, though he's foreign labor. He might be from Calcutta, maybe from Mumbai. Doesn't speak a word of English, doesn't even try. We shop at H-E-B, but change the E to 1. You like pickleball, sorry, them courts are overrun. Some Continentals filling every Walmart job and sending every dollar back to Punjab. Yeah, Cowboys and Indians, that's who you'll find here. Cowboys and Indians, more coming every year. Only two kinds of people live around this town. One's a fan of football and the other is brown. Welcome to Frisco, home of Cowboys and Indians. We ain't got no Comanches, now they all come from Delhi. They used to have feathers, now they all have a dot. The Cowboys missed the playoffs and the fans are smelly. Concession sales curry from a big metal pot. I imagine Frisco's future, though I can't be sure. It might not be a place I'd want to live anymore. Jerry Jones is kept alive inside a lab at the Star. His team of Hindu internists all call him Tsar. 96 is still the Cowboys' last Super Bowl. The litter and the spelling bees are out of control. The cheerleaders were sorries every year at Diwali. Outside of City Hall's a giant statue of Cali. Cowboys and Indians, that's who you'll find here. Cowboys and Indians, more coming every year. Only two kinds of people live around this town. One's a fan of football and the other is brown. Welcome to Frisco, home of Cowboys and Indians. Yeah, Frisco, home of Cowboys and Indians.
That's a banger. Oh, my God. Oh, all right. Well, sticking with the subject of immigration, this is also something that is now making the rounds again. We actually saw this report last year when it came out. This was a report from the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, which took a look at 1,000 cases that had fraud or ineligibility indicators along with them. And they did site visits to over 900 places. They did in-person interviews, and they found a lot of evidence of fraud. Nearly half of all immigrants in Minnesota, in the Minnesota-St. Paul area, or Minneapolis-St. Paul area, excuse me, were found to be engaging in fraud. And this actually came out before Nick Shirley came out with his Somali daycare investigation. But it didn't really get the attention on a wide scale until after that. And now, because there's so much more attention going into the visa conversation and obviously just immigration as a whole, many more people are starting to take notice of this. And it's incredibly illustrative when you think about just how many of these immigrants are here in the United States, combining it with what we just spoke about, these diploma mills, all of these individuals coming here and essentially faking their way into the United States. And it makes you think that nobody was looking or paying attention, or because they were from another country and they had, brown skin, that people just didn't want to look. So we're going to watch this video again because it's highly notable.
From our Fraud Detection and National Security Directorate, working in teams, have conducted over 1,000 site visits across the Minneapolis-St. Paul area as part of this operation. What they found should shock all of America. Focusing on a list of over 1,000 target cases involving more than 900 individuals, our officers encountered blatant marriage fraud, visa overstays, people claiming to work at businesses that can't be found, forged documents, abuse of the H-1B visa system, abuse of the F-1 visas, and many other discrepancies. Over the course of the operation, our officers found indication of fraud, non-compliance, or public safety and national security concerns in nearly a little less than 50% of the cases interviewed.
So I present all of this to once again suggest to you that our immigration system needs to be completely shut down. We should not be allowing people into our country. Not now. Okay, I'm not saying that at some point in the future we shouldn't open it up again. But the immigration system is hopelessly broken, and there is obviously not enough safeguards in place to ensure that people are not committing fraud. Now, President Trump earlier this morning in the DOJ announced the largest ever effort to denaturalize U.S. citizens who have been accused of committing immigration fraud or of concealing serious crimes. Now, the Trump DOJ is expanding their campaign to revoke citizenship from naturalized citizens who are now accused of hiding ties to terrorism, violent crimes they've committed, acts of immigration fraud, all kinds of serious misconduct that they've engaged in during the naturalization process. This is one of the most aggressive uses of denaturalization in modern American history. I've got all the numbers. We'll go over them in a moment. But it reflects a good look at President Trump's America First efforts to restore consequences inside the immigration system. Now, although this is the largest thus far, it's not nearly enough. So the DOJ announced cases made today against roughly a dozen foreign-born U.S. citizens, with targets originally from countries which include some of the best: Iraq, Somalia, China, India, Colombia, Uzbekistan, Morocco, Gambia, Kenya, Nigeria, and Bolivia. Now, officials say these cases involve allegations that range from concealed terror affiliations and war crimes to child sexual abuse, sham marriages, false identities, and immigration fraud. American citizenship should never be a shield for foreign criminals to come in and accept after lying about it. When you are naturalized as an American citizen, you are granted a privilege by the United States of America. And there is no guarantee that by applying for naturalization, you'll receive it. There is no loophole for people who have committed crimes and gotten away with it. Now, Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche said the DOJ is pursuing those who misrepresent themselves to become Americans. And again, I point directly to Ilhan Omar and her brother. Todd Blanche says anyone who intentionally conceals their criminal history or misrepresents themselves during the naturalization process will face the fullest extent of the law. This may be 17 cases that we're going to go over today, but it's only the beginning. Now, they went through and gave us detailed documentation on every single person. So I'm not going to name all of them, but we have a citizen of Cuba who was convicted of conspiracy to commit healthcare fraud. They're being denaturalized. Citizen of Haiti. This person began having inappropriate, sexually abused his minor daughter just a month before filing for naturalization. A citizen of Colombia who is the daughter of a major Colombian drug trafficker, inherited all of his money when he died. She got permanent residency and then concealed her bigamous marriage to a United States citizen. She engaged in wire fraud and bank fraud and money laundering. She actually helped her father finance businesses here in the United States with those drug proceeds. Totally lied about who she was. She's getting sent back to Colombia. A woman from Mexico, she misrepresented her husband's identity to secure permanent residence and then citizenship. And she said that she was the spouse of a U.S. citizen, but she never married that U.S. citizen, and he had died decades earlier. She was actually married to a Mexican national who had assumed the identity of this guy who had died many years earlier. Yet a citizen from Yugoslavia. He was admitted to the United States in 1989. He said he never committed crimes, but then later it appears that he actually had committed crimes, 2 counts of sexually abusing a child under the age of 15. We have a man from Jamaica. Over an 8-year period during his naturalization proceedings, he conspired to manipulate the price and volume of shares of stock in publicly traded companies. He caused more than $54 million to be invested in these shares and then lost investors around $39 million. In 2016, he was found guilty of wire fraud and conspiring to commit serious securities fraud and wire fraud. And along with his wife, along with the wire transfers and conspiracy occurring during that period, he was also required to demonstrate good moral character. He obviously didn't. He's getting sent back to Jamaica. Another citizen of Mexico who began receiving sexually explicit images of minors as early as 2009. A citizen of India who was both the owner and chief executive officer of Magnavision LLC. That was a staffing company in New Jersey. As the officer of Magnavision, Sharma signed and filed 11 fraudulent H-1B visa petitions with USCIS. You have a citizen of the Dominican Republic who conspired with others to distribute more than $1.7 million in prescription drugs wholesale without a license. Another citizen of Somalia who was denaturalized for using 2 separate identities. He claimed he was married with no children. Then an immigration judge discovered that was a lie. You have Victor, a man from the People's Republic of China. He was denaturalized after it was found that he had failed to disclose prior crimes. You have a citizen of Congo, was denied immigration benefit and adopted a new identity and then reapplied. You have a citizen, again, from Colombia, an ordained Roman Catholic priest who was involved in sexually grooming and abusing minor children. You have a citizen of Trinidad and Tobago, also had sexual intercourse with a female who was under the age of 16, statutory rape. Another citizen of Jamaica who conspired to steal and resell medical products from military hospitals that were operated by the Department of Defense. Citizen of the Philippines. This person, prior to his naturalization, began sexually abusing a child under the age of 15, his biological cousin. And another citizen of Cuba. She and her husband and several others stole millions of dollars from a casino by creating false credit vouchers. So anyways, she's on her way back now. So let's take a look at it by the numbers. President Trump, between 1990 and 2017, there was 305 total denaturalizations. During President Trump's first term, he had 168 total denaturalizations. During Biden's 4 years, there were 64 total denaturalizations. Now, in the first 16 months of President Trump's second term, we've already had roughly 99 total denaturalizations. And the DOJ has just announced that that number is going to increase. I would expect every single day we are probably going to find that new people are being denaturalized. And I think that's a wonderful thing. I think that that number needs to continue to increase, and it needs to increase by orders of magnitude more than what we are seeing currently. Now, I promised you I was going to ask you to call Congress. And I'm not just asking you to call anyone in Congress. I'm going to give you a link for members of the House Appropriations Committee. Of course, there are Democrats and Republicans both sitting on the House Appropriations Committee. But the reason it's necessary for you to call every single person on there is because the Appropriations Committee is where the DHS appropriations bill goes. And it appears that Congress is trying to sneak in appropriations and measures to increase the H-2A and H-2B visa programs. We already have far too many people who are coming in on those two visa tracks. And now they want to bring more people in on those two visa tracks. These are, again, going to be for efforts to undercut American workers and make it harder for American workers to get jobs. Now, this is at the same time that we're trying to push people out of the country. It appears to me that they are trying to offset the people who are not being allowed to stay. We have H-1B visas, which are leaving at record rates, leaving those houses in Texas because, of course, they are unable to work here anymore. They have to go back to India or whatever country they're from in order to finalize these processes. But they just slipped in this expansion of the low-wage guest workers, which are in the form of H-2A and H-2B. Now, these are, shoot, that's the wrong link. These are the members of the House Appropriations Committee. The ranking chairman, Republican, is Tom Cole from Oklahoma, and then the ranking Democrat is Rosa DeLauro. This was her before she dyed her hair purple. Now, you can click on any of their pictures, and it will take you to their House webpage. And on that webpage, you can get to their phone number. But you've got all of the majority committee members. These are all Republicans. And then you have the minority community members. These are all Democrats, okay? And every single one of these people needs a call to tell them that it is not appropriate for them to add this expansion to the H-2B, the H-2A and the H-2B visa program. Here, I'm going to put this link in the chat. I humbly ask that you guys in the chat call every single member. I don't care if it's a Democrat or a Republican. I don't care if they represent your state or not. They need to hear from as many people as possible that this is not something that the American people want to happen. We want less immigration, not more immigration. Sharing it over on Twitter now, sharing it over on Getter, I've shared it on Pilled, and I shared it on Rumble. Let me share it over here on YouTube as well. And okay, they did. Thank you very much, Jeff. Thank you to everybody who's willing to call. But again, H-2A and H-2B, low-wage guest workers. These are people that would be able to come in for a short period of time. But of course, they use this as a track to get to get a green card. All right. Now, Stephen Miller over the weekend had spoken out about U.S. District Judge John McConnell. He's an Obama appointee. He's the one who has just issued a 135-page ruling. He issued this on Friday, declaring that the USCIS policies are unlawful, arbitrary, and capricious, and driven by anti-immigrant sentiments. So he vacated the directives that had been placed on the system, indefinite holds on asylum, basically opening the door for people to come in and get asylum. He also unpaused immigration benefits for green cards, work permits, and citizenship applications for the 39 countries that President Trump had said we don't want any more immigrants from these places. Now, these policies were put in place after the events of the shooting in Washington, D.C., where that Afghan Special Forces guy had come in and shot a couple of National Guard members. Let me go ahead and pull up Stephen Miller's comments here. All right, so this is the report from CBS about the federal judge.
A federal judge in Rhode Island has struck down a series of Trump administration policies that were delaying the immigration process for hundreds of thousands of applicants. CBS News immigration correspondent Camilo Montoya Galvez has more on the ruling.
A federal judge has blocked a Trump administration policy that had prevented officials from granting asylum, green cards, and other legal immigration benefits to many immigrants in the U.S. At the center of the court ruling is a series of policies enacted by the administration last year that have sharply restricted legal immigration. One of the policies had completely halted all legal immigration applications filed by citizens of 39 countries listed on President Trump's so-called travel ban. For months, most immigrants from countries like Cuba, Haiti, Iran, and Nigeria have not been able to get work permits, asylum, permanent U.S. residency, or American citizenship. The Trump administration says it enacted that pause on national security grounds after an Afghan man who was granted U.S. asylum allegedly shot 2 National Guard members in Washington, D.C.
Now, I don't care that they're stuck in some kind of limbo because, again, getting any of those things is a privilege. It's not a right. Stephen Miller said, local judge says it's illegal to restrict migration and that America actually belongs to 8 billion foreigners, not you or your family, and that no matter who you vote for, you will be dispossessed. If SCOTUS doesn't restrain these judges, the people will lose faith in the courts. Stephen, we've already lost faith in the courts. I agree with you. We need to have this reined in by the Supreme Court. That's the only thing that's going to be able to stop these people. However, we've also seen, even after the Supreme Court rules on some of this stuff, lower court judges, which are appointed by Democrat presidents, seem to think that they even know better than SCOTUS. They think they know better than the president. They think they know better than Congress. They think they know better than anybody. Now, at the same time, we have this account right here. Her name is Juicy Star 1908. She's interesting because she is actually a green card holder herself, and she is from Quebec. She lives here in the United States. However, she has a contact at the State Department, and she, in her community, has been giving information about illegal activity by H-1B visa holders. Now, she says, I heard from a very reliable anonymous source that H-1B visa holders are self-deporting in record numbers. Mainly, these groups are leaving the country voluntarily. You've got individuals who have no pathway to a green card after a failed labor market test. Full credit is due to Jobs Now and the thousands of Americans applying for permanent jobs. Number 2, individuals working for suspicious consultancies because they are aware they're being investigated. These are the businesses that were doing these fake H-1Bs and getting people into the country under suspicious circumstances. Number 3, individuals who own rental properties are also self-deporting because they're becoming aware that the U.S. government is actually processing my tips, her sending in these tips. As a friendly reminder, the first visa revocation letters were sent to H-1B landlords 3 months ago. 3 months ago, she gave tips on people who have H-1B visas who are illegally renting properties to people, and those people got investigated. Those people had to leave the country. Also, individuals in the Dallas-Fort Worth area are starting to see that Americans' frustrations with the H-1B visa are real, and that Americans are starting to organize. They know it's a matter of time before more fraud investigations are launched or that legislative changes are implemented. So these people are just deciding to get ahead of the problem and go back to India or whatever country they came from. The common point between these 4 groups is that they are scared of being grabbed by ICE, and they would much rather self-deport before they need to admit to their families that they got deported. Despite this progress, this is not the time to slow down and sit on your laurels. This is the time to double down and work even harder than ever before. This is why I will personally respond to every single inquiry from individuals who want to monitor their local area for listings. If I have to train 100 of you one-on-one and answer questions, I will. She's actually like giving people the tools that they need to find people in your community who are engaging in these behaviors so that you can then report them and get them kicked out of the country. Now, Anti-Sync, this is the guy who does these, he processes evictions and bank repossessions, And he's seeing a lot of this stuff. I've played you some videos from him. He lives in Texas, and he's seen it in these areas where H-1B visa holders have been like the #1 buyers of homes. He says, he retweets that post that we just read, and he says, Indian forums are full of H-1B folks that are talking about self-deportation, failed green cards, shady consultancies under investigations, landlords getting revocation letters, and DFW pressure is hitting hard. Good. Left and right are uniting on this. You changed our way of living. You stole jobs, and we're done. This is one issue Americans can actually come together on. We're not letting up. It's time to hammer the corporations who enabled it and replaced Americans with their own. Double down. Now, Juicy Star continues. I had to tell my contact at the State Department that they will need to wait 1 extra day for my weekly landlord spreadsheet. She does a report every week and then sends it into the State Department. I am training and onboarding 8 people to the team working on H-1B landlords today. Please support these patriots who are stepping up. I barely made a dent in the over 100 DMs that I received from patriots just like you who inquired about training to find H-1B landlords in their local area. Based on data from real estate industry insiders, there are an estimated 100,000 H-1B landlords across the country. Close to 2,000 have been found so far, and we are barely scratching the surface. By the way, this includes H-1B mortgage fraud. That is another rabbit hole on its own, and we need to state that federal and state governments are looking into the issue. As many commenters have said, we just need to enforce the laws currently on the books that have never been enforced. If you want to follow her, if you want to get trained on this, her Twitter is at JuicyStar1908, at JuicyStar1908. Okay? And I would highly suggest doing that if you guys want to get involved and do this on your own. All right. Now, the reason it's even more important than ever is because another federal judge, much like the judge in Rhode Island who shut down President Trump's asylum and travel ban, has just ruled that President Trump's $100,000 H-1B visa fee is unlawful. So he has struck down President Trump's new H-1B visa rules. He says they're unlawful, and he has, of course, stopped the administration from continuing to charge this $100,000 H-1B visa fee, which has been incredibly successful in stopping people from even coming to the United States of America. Now, this was because of a lawsuit from 20 Democrat state attorneys general who is challenging the administration's announcement from September that they will be increasing this fee. Now, both this and the asylum case that we just talked about, this is not the end of this. This is obviously going to get challenged, once again, appealed by the administration, both of these instances. This is going to make its way all the way to the Supreme Court. And it's probably not going to heavily influence people's decisions to come back to the United States or to keep trying for these H-1B visas, because they know that there is a lot of pressure that is being put on the community. And of course, there's a lot of investigations that are taking place at the federal level. But the H-1B being the main visa working pathway for highly skilled, supposedly foreign professionals in specialty needs like software engineering and program technology, is capped at 85,000 new individuals per year, and a large share of those people are coming from India. I would also suggest that the problems we started talking about with the fake degrees and the fraudulent applicants that are coming over here, this is probably also going to significantly impact these people as well. The standard government filing fees for H-1Bs have historically only been a few hundred to a few $1,000s, but the $100,000 charge was obviously enormous, and it meant that if a company wanted to bring somebody here on an H-1B visa, they had to make damn sure that that person was worth it. Otherwise, why are they going to spend $100,000? So now the ruling invalidates the fee, but it's not going to be the end of it. Again, the administration is going to fight this. And I see this going all the way to the Supreme Court, because this is going to be vital in making sure that we don't just continue leaving the door open to allow people to come in from all over the world. All right. I need to say thank you to Cricket Noise, who says, when this baby hits 88 miles per hour. Candylicious says, guy at work married an H-1B, and she's gotten him to reverse vasectomy to make an anchor baby. I'm disgusted. They live in Jacksonville cesspool. That's disgusting. I hate to see it. One Thunder, thank you for the cookie. I appreciate it. Also, thank you to... final one, Lee Walden, the Zak attack, the discombobulator, Detective F for round, find out. Yes, sir. All right, you guys, I got to go because I need to get out there and eat some dinner. My wife has got it all done, it smells like. And I have one final message from our friends over here on Rumble. You guys have probably seen that Rumble is growing fast. It's not slowing down anytime soon. They're building a real alternative to big tech that puts creators first and actually protects free speech. And now there's also Rumble Premium. It's an easy way to upgrade your experience because with Premium, you get ad-free viewing across the platform. There's no pre-rolls, no interruptions, just the content that you came for. Plus, Premium members unlock exclusive content like bonus videos, video games on my channel, behind-the-scenes drops, and even more. Right now, Rumble is offering $10 off an annual subscription. To pick that up, you just go to rumble.com/premium and use the code STUDIO at checkout. Once again, that's rumble.com/premium. Use the code STUDIO, and you'll have no more pre-roll ads, more freedom, and content that you actually care about. That's the deal. Thank you very much to Rumble. Just want to say, if it wasn't for these Rumble Studio ads, you guys, I wouldn't be able to continue doing this stuff. This is really made up the difference because it's difficult for a lot of people out there. And I never ask you guys to support the channel. When you do, it's totally organic, and I appreciate every single bit of it. But Rumble has really, really made it possible for me to actually have a monetized channel. It's really something that I can't thank them enough for. All right, you guys, thank you for being here. Good luck. God bless. I'm going to pass out these gold pills, and I will be live at 10:30 tonight on Badlands Media for Baseless Conspiracies. If I don't see you there, I'll be back here tomorrow at 5. Peace. Make sure you guys hit that like button, please.